Hurts on the sneak. Pyle drives his way in. Touchdown.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
3rd and 16. Mahomes rolling out. Looking, firing, intercepted. Picked up by Cooper DeJean. Gets a block. DeJean is in. Touchdown.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Here's Mahomes. Four-man rush over the middle. It's intercepted again. This time it's Zach Bond, and the Eagles are set up inside the 10.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Hurts lets it go. Complete A.J. Brown. He's in. Touchdown, Eagles.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Maddox comes in and makes a huge play. Now the Eagles get it back. We're going to run some clock, or maybe throw the dagger. Hurts going deep for it all. Devontae Smith. He has got it. Touchdown.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on this Tuesday afternoon, 365 Sports in studio on the corner of MLK and Elm, just off the Brazos River. We're here today and taking you up until about 6 o'clock. We got a couple of guys that are going to be inducted into the Texas Sports Hall of Fame this Saturday. And one of them, Todd Dodge, long-time, very successful high school coach who played quarterback at Texas, will join us momentarily. And Richmond Webb, All-American, played with the Dolphins in the NFL, also from A&M. He will join us today at 4:25. So it's kind of a period where football season is done, but there is still the draft. There is still constant changes when it comes to rosters and spring practices and whatever else will be coming up around the corner. Dane Brugler, who will join us at some point between now and the draft in April, put out his top 100 players today, and it's something that we can kind of chew on a little bit. Then we'll have Todd Dodge that joins us here in about 8 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, I thought there were some interesting things about this morning when I went through it, and the way that he lists it. And, I mean, there's 100 players, so it's not like we can make a reasonable graphic for this. Let me turn and face the better way here, now that I'm looking at the camera for the first time. But Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Jalen Walker, top 3 players. Ashton Gentis is 5th-ranked player. This is not the order in which he thinks these guys will be drafted. This is the order in which he thinks they are talented. And the most interesting thing in a class that has 2 guys who will likely be picked in the first round at quarterback. Cam Ward is the 15th ranked player, and Shadur Sanders is the 25th ranked player, but they'll likely be gone in the first 7 picks, if not the first 2.
Yeah, quarterbacks are always more valuable than sometimes their ranking. You have those who are ranked at the very, very top with guys like Peyton Manning, et cetera, that are going to go immediately. Craig Smoak, your thoughts about the defensive line. Here's a note from Daniel Jeremiah. Last year at this time, he's another guy that works for the NFL Network and covers the draft. I had potential starter grades on 12 defensive tackles. This year, I have 24, a ridiculous amount of depth at a position in this draft class. Move the Sticks is where he is on Twitter. 24, what he considers starting grades on defensive tackles, interior linemen on the defensive side of the football, which is a nice chunk, a big-time chunk. The guys who get all the attention are the ones who get to the sacks, the quarterbacks, et cetera, but that's pretty interesting. Abdul Carter, edge. Jalen Walker's an edge. Mason Graham's a big defensive tackle. Plays at Michigan. So those are the highest-rated defensive linemen among his top 10.
Yeah, I mean, thanks to Dane Brugler for giving us a little bit of water out in the desert now that football season's over with, and having these mock drafts now be a part of probably the regular conversation piece for a lot of sports folks over these next couple months as we now march towards the draft and the next big football event, especially since spring games have clearly kind of subsided to the point of not being as big of a deal. You saw the big Nebraska story last week, I'm sure, or was that a couple weeks ago, with Matt Rule talking about the spring game and not wanting to do it anymore, to not put it in front of so many people and potential portal poachers and things like that. And I don't know how much all of that is the fear, and really the reality is just there's not really a point to having the big spring games as much anymore. I think that's just more the thing. It's just not as big of a deal to have that. But with those kind of taking more of a back seat, and I don't know about y'all, but I've felt that the last couple of years when we've gone to like the Baylor spring game. Like, I used to look forward to that, and now it's like, all right, let's get to the – can we just interview Aranda afterwards and just get to that point and be done with it, because we're not really seeing anything that's that great. So with that all kind of like taking a back seat, what do we have to look to during the springtime as far as football-related stuff? I guess for some people it's a minor league. For others, it's the NFL draft. So, yeah, here we are, and Travis Hunter remains his top prospect. So good to see the Colorado Buffalo there on top of the heap. And you don't know how often in this day and age that there will be a non-SEC or a non-Big Ten guy getting that top spot. So the fact that Travis Hunter's kind of almost been wire to wire the number one guy for a lot of these that I've seen is pretty cool, and obviously speaks to what a talent he is. But we kind of already knew that, given, he won the whole Heisman Trophy and everything. But, that jumps out to me. And then, as you mentioned, the D linemen, the edge guys. I mean, there's a bulk of those, 3 in the top 4 with Carter, Walker, and Graham, as you mentioned. So that's a position, especially we hear the terms edge rusher a lot more often than we used to in terms of the premium players and the premium position that people are looking for. And Abdul Carter and Jalen Walker are going to be making a lot of big-time money because those are the top 2 guys when it comes to that position. And, D-line appears to be stacked. We've talked about this before. Texas appears to be stacked in terms of draft picks, a bunch of their guys in this top 100. But, an interesting sprinkling. It's fun to look at. If you didn't know this was like the mock draft and you just said, here's the top 100 college players list, you might go down a little ways before you realize that it's not, because there's a lot of stars and standouts that we've been talking a lot about the last couple of years. And they're number 5, old Ashton Genty. So he's staying right there near the top of the boards, and I'm obviously very interested in how far he goes down or up in the draft, being, this jewel of a running back that so many teams now are kind of salivating after, whereas what a fortunate young man that Bijan and guys like that kind of cleared the way back for him again, because had he come out like 3 years ago, was he like a 3rd-round pick or something like that? I mean, maybe not with his talent, but it's just a totally different conversation around running back now than it was even 2 years ago. So he's going to go high, and then the last guy I'll comment on that's just in that top 10 is Tedero McMillan.
Yeah, number 7.
He's at number 7. So cool to see that. Haven't heard a lot of pre-draft buzz about him, but obviously we know that he's the real deal. And so I'm very excited to kind of follow him throughout the draft process and see where that lands him ultimately. But he's the top-rated wide receiver in these top 100 players, which is not a shock, but it's just still cool to point out and to see. And, it's going to be a fun draft because you keep – like Tyler Warren, that's a hell of a pickup for somebody at tight end. Shamar Stewart from A&M's in the top 10. That's another edge rusher. So, edge rushers, Genty, Tedero McMillan, and Tyler Warren. That's basically your top 10 from Dane Brugler at this point.
So, again, it's now, and it can change, and there's the combine and all sorts of things that will line it up. But I like the way when the draft board, when someone like Dane Brugler puts 1 through 100, the players, as he sees their value in the NFL, he's not trying to match up Shedeur with anybody in particular, or Cam Ward with anybody in particular, or Ashton Genty with anybody in particular. It doesn't mean he doesn't have his thoughts about that, but this is top 100 prospects from 1 through 100. We'll dive back into this again a little bit later on.
By the way, an interesting guy who's popped up into the top 100 over the last couple of months, Jack Besh from
That's
TCU.
cool.
He's been I mean, he dominated the Senior Bowl, absolutely dominated the Senior Bowl in practices and in the actual game, which, again, I don't know how far that goes in real life, but he kind of, after not doing anything his first year at TCU, really had a good year, 6'1", 212, fast, goes up and gets the ball. So I'm interested to see where he winds up because I think he can help somebody pretty soon.
Yeah, I agree. Like someone like Tez Johnson, he's a big name, dynamic talent. He's 89. That's how deep in some cases at the wide receiver out of Oregon. But, there's the first UT player I saw was Kelvin Banks, I think at 22. Again, that can change. The Big 12, really nice with you have Travis Hunter and also Tedero McMillan in the top 7 players for the upcoming draft. And someone else might have their top 100. In fact, there'll be 5 or 10 of them that might change a little bit. I got a feeling most of the same players will be the ones that are ranked very, very high. Garrett Ross is here running the mothership. Emery not here.
He'll be back.
Andrew today in and out. We'll have him on with us at some point today inside the studio on this Tuesday afternoon. Our guest today also Kevin Flarity, covering the Big 12 when it comes to recruiting and also men's basketball. We'll look at last night, also a busy schedule tonight. Richmond Webb will join us, and also Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, Paul's Top 5, and Hall of Fame columnist John McClain. But we're starting with a multi-Hall of Famer, Todd Dodge at Lovejoy High School, who is, of course, entering the Texas Sports Hall of Fame, already in the High School Football Hall of Fame. He joins us on 365 Sports with Craig and Paul, and I'm David Smoak. Coach, great to have you on. We appreciate you being a part of the show. I know it's a big week, big weekend. What does this one mean compared to anything else where you've been honored?
Well, first of all, good afternoon, David, and thank y'all for having me on. I sure appreciate it. This one is they all are such a blessing, but this one was quite a surprise. When I was fortunate enough to go into the Texas High School Football Hall of Fame back in, I think it was 2005. I was fortunate to play around a lot of good teammates, and we did some things that had never been done before, and so I was kind of the beneficiary of that, and then also was still pretty relevant in the sport with my coaching career, so that kind of made sense. But this one, I guess it's a little bit of everything, and I tell you, as I reflect on it, and as I look forward to Saturday night to address the crowd and do all the thank yous, the one guy that comes to mind to me most of all is Brent Duhan. Mm-hmm. And Brent is my dear friend and teammate at Fort Arthur. And you think back about how did all of this start? I'm probably going in to the Texas Sports Hall of Fame more on my coaching credentials than my playing credentials. Definitely from not necessarily at the college level, but Brent and I were beneficiaries of a guy named Ronnie Thompson, and we kind of, because we played for him, we were kind of pioneers in the passing game. And I reflect back on Brent and his career, and now that I've been in the industry of football, I mean, since I graduated from high school, since I was 17 years old, there's not a year that's gone by that I haven't been involved in the game of either high school football or college football. And so that's what I've done. And so I look at Brent and his season in 1980, and he caught 93 footballs for over 1,200 yards and 19 touchdowns in 1980. And I just thank the good Lord that he was my teammate.
Yeah, that's a bunch back in the day. That's before it really opened up. There were some, but not at that prolific at the high school level.
That is dynamic. That's elite in 2024, 2025. Mm-hmm. And so that's pretty special.
Coach, what was the first offense you coached? And what is the offense you coach now, and how different has it changed over this long coaching career of yours?
Well, when I was assistant coach at Rockwall and at McKinney, so my first 5 years were at those two schools. We based out of the I formation, probably a pro style, look. I was, but as it evolved through the years, in my third year at McKinney, and I worked for Ron Poe. You and I've talked about this before. I mean, I never would have been where I am today without him. And you always know that you coach for some good people if they have stadiums named after them. And so Coach Poe does. Mm-hmm. But he allowed me and the rest of our offense staff in 1990 to, put the spread offense in. And really the spread offense at that time was a little bit of a combination of what we were doing at Port Arthur in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, and what the University of Houston was doing with the run and shoot. As it's gone through the years, I tell people all the time, when I was at Southlake, there was probably 4 schools in the state of Texas that were winning championships and doing it probably past first, and that was Ennis, that was Stephenville, mm-hmm. that was Southlake Carroll, that was Highland Park. And I'm not saying there weren't some other people doing it, but all of us were doing it in a tempo, kind of get the chalk last kind of deal, throwing it a bunch. And there have been people that had thrown it a bunch, but I don't think anybody had ever won state championships doing it that way until those 4 over about a 10-year window did it multiple times. And so I think that was something that, and then now, as I spent my 8 years at Westlake, and now that I'm at Lovejoy, the offense that we ran at McKinney 30 years ago is probably still about 65%. What I ran at Southlake Carroll, there's a whole lot of semblance of it still here at Lovejoy. We're just, when I was at Southlake, the last 5 years, we played 80 games in 5 years. That's the most that you humanly can play in 5 years. And we never lined up with a tight end, and we never lined up at a 2-back set for 80 games, and we won 79 of them. So we were a little bit ahead of the curve at that time. And then, we've had to adjust, with what we're doing. We're a little bit more 2-back now, but still trying to stay, be a team that stays balanced and in the run and pass.
So, Coach, things change over time. You've been around the high school game a long time, and things just in general change. We're seeing changes galore in the college game, as you know. Has mm-hmm. Texas high school football been able to properly maintain its spirit? Does it feel like it's pretty much the same game that, despite the X's and O's maybe being different, that you started in? Or is that too, having to be careful of outside changes, outside influences in your mind?
Yeah, it's I just continue to do what we've always done as far as reminding myself, first of all, my coaching staff and our players, is take inventory of things that we can control. There are a lot of things in our industry right now that I am glad to see in change. That I don't want to be that guy. It's the old guy that's saying get off my lawn. But there's other things that just kind of breaks my heart a little bit to see it the way that it is. It's change. The way there probably were guys when I was playing football and coaching football in my early years, people were going, guys, this is not what football was intended to look like, not be throwing it 35 times a game. But so most of the stuff that's changed, it's not the on the field play, it's the off the field stuff that just kind of is bizarre. I hate, and even at the high school level right now, it seems to almost be there's like a trend to people are looking for the transfer portal at the high school level.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And it's not, I'm just like, that's crazy. There's articles written about and people keep up with, how many offers someone has, and they keep up with, it's like, and where someone's, going to, and so, we still, at our places, it's kind of one of those deals. Don't get me wrong. Everybody that's ever coached anywhere will always be excited about if someone good moves to their school. That's a good player is going to make them better. I mean, let's call it what it is. But we'd like for it to happen a little bit more organically than it does sometimes.
You, of course, were there, Cade Klubnik at Westlake, and then, of course, you went into kind of a quasi-retirement. You still were very heavily involved with camps, and then took over the job at Lovejoy last year. When you saw him, there was a time when he was young at Clemson, and it seemed like Clemson was also not so sure who they are, and the changes in college football maybe had Dabo a little bit confused. He seemed last year, Klubnik, to turn on the jets that everybody expected him to be. Is that what you saw too?
No doubt. And it doesn't surprise me with him. First of all, he is a tremendous young man of faith. He's got everything in perspective. I think you and I have talked about before when Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers started recruiting him, I knew that it was done. And he had 25 offers. But I knew enough about Dabo. I'd met him before. I knew that they were kindred spirits, so to speak. But Cade has always been, and I've had him really in my program since he was in the 5th grade. And I've never seen kids that talented that when you have someone that's that talented as a 7th grader, when he was in 7th grade, very, very talented young quarterback, their ability to improve usually doesn't happen at the rate that you would have expected. With him, he always improved. He was never willing to settle for the same as he did the year before or how good he was the year before. And so that's really kind of what makes him a special competitor. And it's kind of, you can kind of follow that at Clemson with him. And he in a smaller world, it was kind of what he did, when we were at Westlake, the spring of his, he played on the freshman team as a freshman. He suited up with the varsity that spring, and he took his lumps and got his little knocked off during spring ball and never complained about it. And then he played as a sophomore, was part of a quarterback, trio that led a team and a community to its first state championship since 1996. And then and he had a big part in that as a sophomore. And then as a junior and senior, the kid was he started 6 games as a sophomore, and he started 14 games as a junior. So there's 20, and he started 16 games as a senior. So do the math. There's 30. He was 36-0 as a starting quarterback in high school. So I've seen him play hurt. I've seen him understand the difference between pain and injury. I've seen him will his team to wins. He's very versatile. He's now getting some size to him. He's always been kind of tall. He's always been a 6'2" kid, but now he's 210 pounds now. He's not that little, scrawny 175-pounder,
If you walked into a job and any one of your former players was there and knowing what they could do, who would it be that you would say, okay, we're going to be fine starting the job here?
Riley Dodge.
Good. And you made that one. You literally made him. Well,
Yeah.
50% of it.
That's blood.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just and again, he's not the big, but the whole package of the ability to move the ball with your feet, with your arm, and then the knowledge, the football IQ. Now, I'm saying that because when you're just saying he probably wouldn't be the most impressive looking one that I've ever coached on the hoof, but if I could look in that crystal ball and know what he has in his mind and how fast he can run and how accurately he can throw the ball. And yeah, that would be the one you'd say, yeah, we're going to be okay to start a program with.
Coach, you've coached so many players, as we're talking about, so many greats. But a guy this past season that you had firsthand experience in helping coach up that made a huge impact was Michael Taft for Texas. I know you talk about Quinn Ewers and this and that. Cade Klubnik, the big matchup with you and Riley years ago with those two quarterbacks. But Michael Taft and the All-American season, the walk-on story, just all of that. How early did you see what everybody is now seeing in Michael Taft, and what's it like to see him just embrace his role and become the player that he's becoming on the big stage?
Well, he's such a great story for guys like me that, because he was one that when he was in the 7th grade was on the B team. And when he was in the 8th grade, he was on the B team. When he was in the 9th grade, he was on the B team. It wasn't because he wasn't a good player. He just wasn't very big. I mean, he was always a good little athlete. And I knew him from the time he was in probably 6th grade because his older brother was my backup quarterback to Sam Ellinger. When Sam was a sophomore, his older brother was a senior backup quarterback. And so I knew the Taft family. I knew Mookie, through all those years. But when he started to grow, that athleticism came with the growth. And then just an absolute junkyard dog mentality between the white lines, like no other. I mean, that is the thing that you see that a lot of people don't see. You see a really good-looking kid, very well-spoken kid that's a great ambassador for Westlake football, the University of Texas and everything. But if anybody had followed him through his junior high days, his sub-varsity, and then obviously his varsity days at at Westlake, you would have seen the heart and soul of a team and the biggest competitor out of a whole bunch of, strong competitors. But I love the story about him because I'm able to tell people now, like, I've got kids in Brockham that, maybe in middle school, when it comes time to figure out whether you'll be on the A team or the B team, that's always a point of contention with parents. Sometimes they always get a little bent out of shape when junior doesn't make the A team.
Yep.
And I tell them stories about all kinds. I tell them a story about Greg McElroy. I tell them a story about Clint Renfro. I tell them a story about Michael Taft. This guy, he went from being a B teamer in the 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade to being the 2-time defensive player of the game in the state championship, one at corner and one at safety. And the other thing people don't remember is, he turned into our high school version of Travis Hunter in the 2020 playoffs. I moved him to wide receiver the last 2 or 3 district ball games, and he was very productive per the amount of snaps he played. And then for the entire playoffs, he played Z probably 25 to 30 snaps a game. An outside receiver for us, and caught. He caught upward of 35 balls just in the playoffs. So, matter of fact, he caught a pass that pretty much put us in position to beat North Shore in that game, that great game at Katy ISD Stadium.
Todd, we appreciate your time. We'll see you this Saturday. Look forward to it, and you and I'll be in touch the rest of the week. But was there a time, because it wasn't always easy, you had that opportunity at McKinney, then you were an assistant at North Texas, and eventually went back there as a head coach, but things weren't easy early on for you in coaching. Did you ever question yourself that you were in the wrong business, even though this has been in your blood for a long time?
No, I didn't. I had great mentors for me to be able to keep my head up. But, at Cameron, at Newman Smith, at Fossil Ridge, all of them, the second year was better than the first year in all 3 of those. Now, that's not necessarily to write home about, but you could see progress happening. We see ourselves making a difference with kids. And I always tell people, I said, I've never planned on being a guy that was 2 and done in my first 3 jobs. Going somewhere else is just one of those that, I took the Cameron Yo job because Cameron Yo, when I was in Austin, Texas as a player, I knew of Cameron, even though it was a little big town. It was close enough to Austin, and it was a really good traditional high school football town. Boom. Take it. Second of all, the next week I went to Newman Smith. Everybody in 3 counties told me, don't take that job. I was just hard-headed enough to take it. I'll be honest with you, got my wife back to close so she could finish college. That's why I took the job, so I could get her close to University of North Texas. I loved my 2 years there. I absolutely loved it there. And then Fossil Ridge, I went back to work for Dennis Parker and opened Fossil Ridge, so I was one of opened a school. But that was the one that, the no-brainer was that when South Lake Carroll came calling after the Fossil Ridge deal. And that's one of the things that I'm going to talk about on Saturday night is just thanking Bob Ledbetter at South Lake Carroll for being the guy that stood up and hired me at a place where, I can promise you this, there were a lot of other people that were in the hunt for the South Lake job that had a lot better resume coaching than I did at the time.
Last question from me. You have stepped away on occasion, including after Westlake with a great dynamic run. And then you got back into it. And I can share this. You and I talked on the phone when you started to get a little antsy again. Is it just something you can't walk away from?
Yeah, it is, I mean, it really is. And it's just one, I was around the game for the 2 years I was out, and I put myself around the game enough. Not that I'm just one of those guys. When I retired, I'm never going to, I'm not going to be someone who's going to go sell something, but I need to be doing something.
Right.
And really all I know how to do is coach. I don't fish very good. I do like to play golf. I'm not very good, but I do like to play. I make a horrible salesman for something, so, I mean, I think all of us as coaches, we need to circumvent, so to speak, if that's a term, our salaries and stuff and so that's part of, that's what I do. I mean, I'm going to do this for another probably 4 or 5 years, and then I'm going to really retire and enjoy the rest of my life. But I'm absolutely loving it here where we are. I'm starting to be where I understand that I can't wear as many hats as I used to. I just can't. I can't be athletic director, head football coach, play caller, and quarterback coach all at the same time. So I've got great assistants around me, and I'm able to do some either further delegating, and that's going to be a good thing.
Todd, thank you, man. Great to talk to you again. And we'll see you Saturday at the press conference and also Saturday night at the induction. This is different than, the High School Hall of Fame is about as good as it gets in the state of Texas, but this is when everybody is from all sports, men and women, and this one here, what a great honor for you, and we're proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Smoak, I appreciate you. Always
too.
Great friendship.
You too.
Thank you.
Todd Dodge, he's the head coach at Lovejoy. They had a nice run his first year. They'll get better, like he said, in the second year. They always do get better, but started out at Texas after a great run at Jefferson High School in Port Arthur before he became the quarterback. He and Brett Duhon became quite the tandem. And now going into the Texas Sports Hall of Fame. Former A&M All-American and Miami Dolphins All-Pro tackle Richmond Webb will join us at around 4:25. Kevin Flarity at the top of the hour on Big 12 basketball and also thoughts about the offseason in football too. Coming up, a couple of more stories that we didn't get to. We'll do that. This is 365 Sports.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
never get used to this.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgin Ford, coming to you from our climate-controlled, warm showroom, letting you know that right now it is all about pre-owned cars. We've got a great selection of pre-owned vehicles. Right now, every pre-owned vehicle is priced to move. All our pre-owned vehicles are inspected by certified technicians and include the BK Advantage. Right now is the time to shop for a pre-owned vehicle at Bird Colgin Ford.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
College football notes, a couple of them. I covered this grown man. Damian Lewis was at Sulphur Springs High School, played at Miami. He has been on Deion's staff at Colorado. I remember texting him during a game earlier this year when it was one of those in which they won a game. It wasn't the game against Baylor, but you could tell that it was going to be different than the year before when they started quickly and then, of course, faded. Yes, they were blown out by BYU in the bowl game. Damian Lewis headed back to his alma mater at the University of Miami.
He was a badass at Miami back in the day. And I wonder what this means for Warren Sapp. Does he become the full-time DL coach now? Because he's there. So I don't know. But Miami is revamping their defensive staff. Top to bottom, new coordinators, new position coaches, everything, because they were so bad on defense last year. Secondary was the biggest problem, but if you started back and moved to the front, like there was not anybody who could sit in the defensive meeting room and go, "We're killing it, guys. We're killing it." They would all just go and everybody would like put a little offering at Cam Ward's feet when he walked in the door. "Thanks for bailing us out, Cam. Thanks for bailing us out, Cam." Every single time.
Yeah, I mean, Sulphur Springs, Texas, what's up? As that's where he played his high school ball, and that's where I first remember hearing about him, and then the Panthers, and obviously then Miami. Had a great career at Miami, then went to the NFL, played for the Panthers, and I remember him there, and had a pretty nice long NFL career as well, and I don't think I even knew that he got into coaching. Maybe I'd heard that in passing or maybe read that or seen that, but I don't know, just kind of lost track of Damian Lewis. And then I think I did when reading about Colorado and whatnot last year.
It's the first time I saw his name pop up.
Yeah, I think I might have seen that and then been like, oh, okay. But I think this is just a testament to the job that Colorado did on defense this season. And now they've lost their two big line coaches, both of them now gone. So he is following out the door of Vincent Dancy, who went to Mississippi State already. So, yeah, Paul, Warren Sapp might be a byproduct of a promotion because they need somebody at this point. But, he was a guy who's glorified, like, volunteer assistant in so many ways. You would think, though, he was like the D-line coach if you saw a video clip here and there. But Warren Sapp was not the D-line coach. He's a volunteer assistant and whatnot. So I think, Colorado's got some questions now on the D-line because of these two moves, with Dancy and Lewis both now being out the door. Cool that Lewis gets to go back to his alma mater. I mean, that's got to be a really special feeling. You, of course, got to make sure you win, because we know of guys, Scott Frost, they go back home and, maybe I shouldn't have done this. But, no, I think, just going and being an assistant there for Cristobal and company, all the money they're pouring into the program, seems like it's a no-brainer for a former Cane to want to get back there and coach there, but did very well in his short time in Boulder. So, I think Dion's got some hires to make, and that defense certainly made some big strides last year, but they're losing a couple of the key pieces as to why.
Yeah, Sulphur Springs, when I think about Sulphur Springs, and that's where he played, and I got a chance to visit with him when he signed and covered all that. He's a great dude. I texted him on the way over here. I said, hey, congratulations going back to your alma mater. Do I need to go through your media relations to try to get you on the show? And he said, go through them. I don't see why that would be a problem. So we'll try to see if we can get him on. That'd be kind of neat, just as a Texas note, but also as a guy that is moving up the ranks. He was at Florida International for a year. So that's about the time after he had been out of pro football for a while that he got into coaching. And so congratulations to Damian Lewis.
And you know me on being very unlike the news media these days, I like to be accurate all the time. So, volunteer grad assistant officially for Warren Sharp. He's officially a grad assistant. That's his title. So,
all right.
I do think there is a clarification.
Warren Sharp?
Warren Sapp.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what he is, not a volunteer assistant. But point stands that, he might take on a bigger role, and he's certainly become part of the kind of the scenes that you see with Colorado football throughout last season. He was definitely a guy whose presence was felt on those sidelines. So we'll see if there's more of that or not. But, I do think there's big shoes to fill here.
By the way, he missed being on the greatest college football team of all time by a year.
By a year.
He graduated. He was out in 2000.
Last year was 2000.
Yes, last year was 2000. He was drafted in 2001. Although the 2000 team quite often gets overlooked because they had one dummy loss early in the year, and then in all honesty, I know Florida State made the championship game that year and lost to Oklahoma, but Miami should have in the modern parlance, the BCS kind of screwed them, and then now there's no way that they would have been they both would have been in the playoff, but there's no way that Florida State would have been a higher seed, considering that he sat there and as part of wide right three. I was there. It's hard. I'm sorry. It's trauma.
I'm not good with sequels. You know how I am.
Everybody knows I have dibs on being the pouty sports fan after the Lucas stuff for at least the next week. At least the next week, and then you can go back. We can all share it. But I feel like that's just such a level above right now, Paul. I know that hurts you, but it's just like.
Well, look, I've had 25 years to move on from it, and it's kind of like
25 years.
Yeah, it's 25 years to move on from it. So I'm okay now. I think I'm okay. That's good. Craig, just know that by the time you're in your 60s, you might be able to cope.
You know what? Depends on how many rings he wins. We'll see on that. But I mean, I look at that 01 Miami team. Their D linemen, Vince Wilfork, Jerome McDougal were a couple of the guys. But, Damian Lewis would have been a baller.
The year before, he and Wilfork are right there in the middle.
Yeah.
I
was looking at the year after when he left, who was there.
How are you supposed to between Damian Lewis and Vince Wilfork?
No.
Not to mention some of the other guys that were there. But if you just want to run a counter trap or an ISO, how are you supposed to do that?
Move them, yep. And here's the thing. Their second, third, fourth string guys were probably starters in a lot of them. He was a 6'2", 300-pound defensive lineman, and I'm happy for Damian Lewis. Good for him. Now, DJ Durkin's getting some money. He signed a contract extension, nearly doubling his salary to $2.5 a year. Durkin becomes the second highest-paid assistant coach behind Penn State's Jim Knowles at $3.1 million. I'm telling you, man, I always have asked this. In pro football, they get more and more and more money because of the television deal. And in college football, it's the same way. But these college, and I'm happy, go get your bag. But these numbers for assistant coaches, and you just wonder, it it's amazing how much they're getting paid now, and I'm not complaining about it. But that was a good height. That's a good head coaching job right there. That's a good number.
Yeah.
Now you got guys making $12 to $15 million a year as a head coach.
Yeah, it is, and DJ Durkin has certainly rebounded his career. From when he was the head coach at Maryland.
Yeah, so it's one of those stories where you see it and you're like, oh, that's interesting. No, and then you're like, oh, it was him. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Like for some people at least,
Yeah,
they're not going to ever be DJ Durkin.
And again,
fans.
I don't know. Like, I don't want to keep harping back on it, but I do think it's part of the story of like, here's someone who, had a really tragic thing happen under his watch. That it's very well dissected that he was negligent during. And part of that is that old school football coach mentality of, we didn't have water in my day, kind of a thing.
Junction boys crap.
Yeah,
and I say crap like lovingly, but it's kind of you look back on
but
it
that
now.
stuff. And look, I'm not foolish enough to think he hasn't learned from that and grown. So good for him. But yeah, I mean, he was untouchable there for a little bit, and now he's one of the most sought after defensive coordinators in the country.
Well, the SEC's felt like he's touchable all over because that's where he's basically resided ever since that whole incident at Maryland. He went to the NFL for like a Sprite, basically. I think he was the Falcons for like a year, and then he's been in the SEC ever since then. He's been with Ole Miss for 2 years, A&M for 2 years, and now Auburn going into his second year. He's obviously a hell of a coach. And if it was not for, and that's like the biggest thing in your life, like if it wasn't for that, I'd be, this. So you can't really not mention that big glaring thing that's on your resume. But he is a guy who's been, in the game since then. And yeah, you do hope that you learn lessons and you're better as a person for it. And you've made peace and done all those things. But, as a pure football coach at this point, it's been 5 years, and he's clearly been on the ascendancy once again to the point now being highest paid or was it the second highest paid assistant coach behind Jim Knowles?
Yeah,
so
second.
Yeah, he's a really good football coach, and that's a guy we'll see actually next year here at McClain Stadium because Auburn will be rolling into town. So Dave Aranda, or more likely Jake Spavital, that is, will have to get ready for that DJ Durkin game plan. Right there early on in the football season.
Yeah, that's cool. That's right. We will see him. I'm still excited about that. I don't know if I'd feel the same. I think I would because Auburn or a school like that, a Power 4 that's coming into wherever you're covering a team or wherever you might live to go watch a game. But to have Auburn and then at SMU, that game also, I'm looking forward to it. The best non-conference schedule since I arrived in 2010. And so the best non-conference schedule Baylor's had probably 10 years prior to that. I don't know. I know Grant Taft played some damn good teams. Played them anywhere, all over the place. But the Baylor, looking forward to that, see what they do, Auburn and SMU.
That's back when coaches weren't afraid of things.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there were, but like in the 70s, granted, there weren't like as many really good, like you were kind of limited on your scheduling, when it came to that because – you weren't going to spend a bunch of budget to do a home and home with a school that, like, they were going to play home and home with Buffalo, back then. And there weren't as many schools in Division I and all that. But, yeah, there were – I mean, Grant Taft is from that era of coaches like that were like, oh, yeah, we're going to go play USC at their place. That's fine. Like, they weren't afraid of that.
I don't think you saw a lot of games. And I'm just doing this. I'm Googling a team right now as far as a schedule and roster. You didn't have – for the longest times, you didn't have an FCS. You did not have FCS teams playing, or what was then Division I AA. There were some, but I just Googled, for example, 1980 Nebraska, Utah, Iowa, Penn State, Florida State. Now Utah wasn't exactly who they were, but that was their first 4 games. That was their non-conference schedule, and I think that was more the norm than it was the exception. That was just, I don't know why I picked out 1980, but I did. I'm not sure where Utah might have been at the time as far as what conference they were in, but not among what you would consider. They were FBS or Division I football. All right, when we come back, the 5 o'clock hour, we'll have Kevin Flarity. But let's do basketball before he joins us. Last night, Houston was better. They're more dominant. They're more physical. Baylor played pretty well. They Houston's just better. L.J. Cryer had a really big night for them.
God, it feels like he's been playing for 9 years. I mean, Jesus, feels like he's been around forever. I've just been hearing that name for years and years.
I know this is his fifth year. I think this is 5. His second year with Houston after the first 3 being with Baylor.
Yeah, he's certainly not the only one, but just hearing L.J. Cryer's name again, I was like, God, he's still playing college basketball, but hey, he's a hell of a player.
Yeah, hell of a player.
I didn't mean to cut off your thought there. Houston was better.
Okay.
Go ahead.
If I would have done that, my God, I would have had to run for cover. No, I'm serious, though. That's a good point. He's been playing forever. And he hit a big 3 at a moment when Baylor was trying to hang tough. They ended up losing by 11. Houston is leading the Big 12. They're right there with Arizona. Arizona tonight will be a fun game against red-hot Kansas State.
You know, we talked about the 4 guards yesterday with Pat Dunley. Now there is, a manner of thinking of like if you have to change something up, Big Monday's the best time to do it because you don't have time to practice it, and they don't have time to practice for it. So you're just going to go out there and see what happens and play loose. The problem with that, that works some of the time, but when you have to go play Houston and roll something out new that at their place, that's just not ideal. That is not ideal. You would rather have Oklahoma State, a team that's struggling a little bit when you're trying to do something completely new. I think they'll get the hang of it, but without any bigs with any kind of experience on the roster, this is going to be a struggle for them for a little bit. Until they get in their rhythm. Now, VJ Edgecombe did miss a shot last night, and they've got some things that they can do. But if they're not at 75 or more, this is not a game they're going to win.
Yeah, I can see that
on the way out.
I can see that. Now they have what? West Virginia and then Arizona. Is Arizona's around the corner? They're not bad, right? Arizona tonight hosting K-State. K-State on that 5-game winning streak. Also, Iowa State on the road against UCF. Utah, Cincinnati, BYU at West Virginia, and Colorado plays 17th ranked Kansas. So those are the games. You have this week Alabama, number 2 in the country, playing in Austin, just down the road. Tennessee, Kentucky, 2 top 25 teams. Florida, Mississippi State. That's tonight. Purdue, Michigan, 2 top 25 teams. That's tonight. Hell of a night in college basketball, and also look forward to it as the weekend continues to go. I had the one more. James Blanchard, who's the general manager, Texas Tech football, whatever the titles they are. Remember, Notre Dame was more than interested in bringing him up to be their guy in South Bend. He eventually put up the picture. We showed it yesterday, staying in Lubbock. There was a lengthy story. Max Olson, ESPN, a lengthy story, 7-8 pages long. Has Texas Tech built a college football power in the portal?
Yeah. I mean, maybe. I mean, we'll see. I mean, that's why. I mean, it's a very long article.
I was going to say, you're going to have to point out some things if we're going to talk. I haven't been able to read it. I saw the headline before I came in here, and I saw Max wrote it, so I'll read it, but I haven't had a chance to get any snippets from it. So I'm not sure what's worthwhile maybe in there to pass along.
The bottom line is Texas Tech has not played in the Big 12 championship game, and it drives the fan base crazy. I hate to use that term, all in, because Jerry said that too, but they have obviously increased all of what they have available, and it's a pretty cool story about the relationship. James, of course, we've mentioned this before, was an internet message board dude who put out information about potential type prospects, and he had his top 10 or 100 or whatever in the state of Texas. But it's a cool story about a guy that was a message board analyst in a way, who now is getting paid a ton of money to run the Texas Tech football program. And I saw a note about if he's so good at acquiring talent, then why would they then need to use the transfer portal? Even the very best schools in America with all the talent in the world are very good at using, or try to be as good as they can be in adding to what they have with the transfer.
Who played quarterback for the national champion this year?
Will Howard.
Was he always at Ohio State?
Nope. Transfer portal.
Who busted the big run for Ohio State.
Quinshon Judkins.
Did he play at Ohio State?
Yep.
Nope.
I mean, like, we could do that. Yeah, I mean, I get the point, though. I do think it's a lot. I mean, I'll say this about it. It's an awful lot of attention for a guy that you don't otherwise know existed like 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. So I think if I'm a Texas Tech fan, I think this is all great. Any attention's good attention, for the most part, obviously. This is the fact that Notre Dame, what did they finish in the country? 2. Yeah. Only lost to Ohio State, who spent more than anybody in the transfer portal. Mm-hmm. So it worked for Ohio State, but I do understand the point, and I think it's a fair point because I think we are hearing there's a freaking 7-page story on the talent wrangler, basically, for Texas Tech.
Yep. And
him sticking around and them hopefully now winning the Big 12. So, I think you want to see more than just more articles about how good you're at bringing in transfers. You want to see, like, it led to the Big 12 championship, and anything short of that, I think, is a failure. I think it says in the article, like, and I told you I haven't read it all yet, but the very first start of it's like Texas Tech, they were going to spend $5 million in the portal, and then, like, I don't know, they ended up spending $10+ million when all was said and done. So they're putting their money where their mouth is. But, yeah, you eventually do want those results, and you hope that holding on to James Blanchard is a big part of getting those results ultimately because he brings in the right players. And, look, the transfer the acquisitions through the portal is important. I mean, Jalen Conyers last year was a really good pickup for them. There's others as well. So, I mean, the whole reason they're even being talked about now is like some sleeper team or whatever. I don't know if sleeper is the right term because they've been talked about. But the whole reason you're even pumping them up next year is not because Baron Morton's coming back. It's because of what they did in the transfer portal. Like, that's where the hype is coming from. It's the fact that Joey's going into yet another year and they have more of their system in place, but they're also changing coordinators. So the big part of the talking point about them right now is their talent acquisition. So if not for James going out and getting all the people that he did, there's probably not as much talk about Texas Tech, right? So he's definitely raised the expectation level, and they're going to have to meet it, or, there will be people that grumble about that, but that's why he's getting paid big money, is to go and do that, and we'll see in the next couple of years who was right, the Tech investment side or, I guess other talent evaluators out there did it a little bit better, but he's getting handsomely rewarded, that's for sure.
They had 17 players in December they added, including 7 of the top 75 in ESPN's transfer rankings. And Katie Rader put this up there, is that they wanted 10. Add 10 players that are going to make them better. That'd be great, right? Go grocery shopping, get the 10 best, whatever it is, to make a meal. And then because of what they were doing and how they were doing it, once they got on the campus in Lubbock, other players above 10 wanted to also be a part of it. And so that's also now there's been a lot of talk and there's been a lot of articles. And we like Joey, man. He's going to probably be on the show here sometime soon. But go win early, middle, and end of the year and try to see if you have a chance to get that Big 12 title. I know it's driving fans absolutely crazy.
Yeah, they got to stop stumbling out of the gate. They do. Like they've got to. I mean, that's kind of been their thing. Is they in their good years that Joey's been there, stumble out of the gate a little bit, and then like all of a sudden you're like, oh wow, look at him running. So yeah, they got to stop doing that.
I mean, they've had a pretty good non-conference opponent every year that's been part of that, where they played a tough team. They don't have that this year. So like, it really does appear as though, and we haven't broken down the schedule. We're going to start doing that. We're going to start going team by team and just like taking the very early look at just what the schedule looks like in terms of your road games and all of that. But they don't play in Oregon this year. They play in Oregon State. So like that should lead you to hopefully they play Kent State, who's one of the worst football teams in America. I mean, that should be obviously a win. And Pine Bluff.
Yeah.
So I mean, they should be 3-0 to start the season. And then, you ride that momentum and see where it takes you. But I think that it's all sort of shaping up that you should expect a lot if you're a Tech fan, and you should also accomplish a lot if you're the Tech staff based on what you've done to this point.
All right, when we come back, Kevin Flarity, he does a little bit of both. He's into recruiting, high school or college football, and also his thoughts about the Big 12 in basketball with who are the red-hot teams. We know them. We've pinpointed them. What's happening, he also has covered Kansas quite a bit. We'll get into that. This is 365 Sports. The Baylor alumni fan engagement led by Paul Thorpe and Doug Furch on campus at Baylor. If you are an alum and you're going to have a watch party to watch a specific game that Baylor's playing, let's say men's basketball coming up, but you're not around here, and you're not going to be wherever they are, or maybe you are on the road somewhere, you're out living where they might be on the road the next time they are, and you want to know where are you staying? I want to come by and see some people. The alums and donors stay together. Events that are watch parties, even if it's not anywhere near the state of Texas, and especially once you get into the tournament. Now, Baylor has some work to do to make sure that that's the case in the NCAA tournament, no matter how long it might be. The Baylor Alumni Fan Engagement, setting up you to be connected with the university and vice versa, Baylor.edu.
Cars priced right, both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help us finally hear. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. This segment is brought to you by Michelob Ultra. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. Containing only 95 calories and 2.6 carbs.
Kevin Flarity, a podcast hoster for Kansas City Sports Network, has covered the Big 12 in basketball for a long, long time, the state of Kansas recruiting, and also we'll get into Big 12 football, too, with KU and Kansas State. Kevin, thank you very much. So we had you on a couple of different times, and things were changing for you. Now that you're a part of this, and congratulations, and your thoughts about how things have been at the Kansas City Sports Network.
Yeah, things have been great. Not only have they kind of tapped me to help them with their Kansas beat stuff, but also I've always had a passion for recruiting and kind of had a passion for State of Kansas recruiting, because a lot of those guys can tend to get overlooked and they wind up leaving the state a lot of times and being really, really good players. And so the fact that they offered me a show and a chance to talk about those guys was really something nice and kind of a passion project to go along with that as well.
So, Kevin, let's before we get into recruiting, let's get down to brass tacks, because you have the Pay Heat podcast as well. Sure. Is Kansas going to figure out their lineup?
That's the $1 million question, right? I think, Bill Self, after they lost to Kansas State over the weekend, he brought up the defense is the biggest thing. And I think lack of focus is probably the single biggest issue that they have. But when you look at, they've really struggled to find sort of that perfect lineup, haven't found it yet. And it sounds weird to say about a team that ranks number 5, I think, in the country defensively, according to KenPom, but their defensive spurts have really been hit or miss. And so there have been times when they've looked like an octopus and they've strangled people out, and the defense has been fantastic. You look at the start of the game against Duke, the game that they wound up winning on a neutral court, the defense was terrific early on it and kind of propelled that whole thing. You look at the game against Kansas State, and Kansas State, as we know, is a team that's been pretty inconsistent offensively, and maybe that's even a kind way to put it. And Kansas just couldn't get stops at all. And after the game, Self said, hey, we couldn't even defend our own shadow. And so I think one of the challenges there is a challenge that a lot of people are dealing with, in that the best offensive players are not also the best defensive players. And so how do you mix and match those guys to where you're not taking too much off the table defensively while also being a team that's able to score the ball?
Is what Jerome Tang and Kansas State have done remarkable, considering where they were? It looked like there were games that KU, one of them, and a couple of others where they just kind of shot themselves in the foot, could not sustain any momentum. But they now have won 5 straight since Scott Drew visited with the team in the post-game locker room.
Yeah, it's been fascinating to watch, because I think when you looked at this team early on, and I know you guys know Jerome Tang, I do as well, just watching the press conferences, watching the way he interacted with his team, I kind of felt like, man, he may not even like these guys, right? It seemed like it was kind of an awkward fit. And I talked to a pretty good source that I have, and he said, no, Jerome Tang really likes these guys. He's just kind of waiting for it to click, and it hadn't clicked yet, and they needed to work through some things. You're seeing Doug McDaniel all of a sudden starting to play well. Coleman Hawkins, I think a lot of people forget, was a complimentary guy at Illinois who did a lot of things really well, but wasn't necessarily the starring player. And so it was a little bit of a new role for him. He had to kind of figure out that, hey, I can't score 6 or 8 points and not contribute in these other ways, because this is a team that needs more from me. You add in the growth of certain guys along with that group, and David Gesson's been terrific as sort of a glue guy for them as well. And I'll tell you what, this is a Kansas State team right now. I know it sounds weird to say about a team that is basically right around 500, but they're playing well enough that they could make a run at the NCAA tournament if they don't trip up here down the stretch.
Do you think that there is anyone who can catch Houston reasonably? Maybe Iowa State, if they get healthy?
Iowa State is the team that I would say, if you had the Big 12 tournament 2 weeks from now, who could beat Houston in the Big 12 tournament, I would pick Iowa State. I think Arizona, as great as they've been, I think some of the things there have been schedule related. The Big 12 schedule is so unbalanced. And so you have an area where you're going through just absolute murderer's row, and it feels like you can't win. And then all of a sudden you'll play 4 of the teams in the Big 12 that are ranked near the bottom aren't anywhere near being NCAA tournament teams. And so teams look hot and then they get cold, and vice versa. You asked me about Kansas earlier. Kansas went through a really tough stretch, and now all of a sudden you've got Colorado, I think, twice. You've got BYU. You've got Arizona State. So the schedule does ease up for them significantly. I think with Arizona, some of it's been schedule related. I think Arizona's just an inconsistent team, which sounds weird to say about a team that's 11-1 in conference. The defensive stretches for Arizona when they are locked in are terrific. And I think when you look at some of their lineups, that's sort of how they can get their hay in the barn. The shot making can be a little bit inconsistent. And I think that's where I would hesitate to say, hey, this team can catch Houston overall in the Big 12 standings, even though they're right there with them. Houston is just so good on a night in, night out basis. And I feel like Arizona is going to struggle down the stretch to sort of keep pace with them. But if you're saying, hey, who's the Big 12 team that could potentially win a Big 12 tournament, could potentially go the furthest in the NCAA tournament outside of Houston, I would say Iowa State with Milan Momcilovic back. I really think that's a good group. I think Curtis Jones looked so much more comfortable in their win coming off the bench as a sixth man. I think he had 24 points. So, yeah, you look at that Iowa State team as a team that's very dangerous right now.
Well, you have Houston ranked in the top 10. Iowa State, of course, is there as well, and others are trying to get to that position. Last year's national tournament did not go very well, Kevin, for the Big 12. They were touted as the best conference. You can get the analytics, the data, and all that. And, of course, Kansas and Baylor winning national titles, Tech playing right there for one in recent years. How bad – not bad, but how important is it for this conference to get their mojo back in the postseason?
Yeah, I think it's really important because I think the non-conference didn't go as well as maybe a lot of people would have thought. And it did for the SEC, right? When you look at the way sort of that narrative shifted, it shifted before conference play even started. There wasn't a chance for people to tune into a random Big 12 game on January 15th and say, oh my gosh, this is the best basketball in the country, because at that point the SEC had already lapped the Big 12 this year. And I think for all the additions to the Big 12, when you add so many teams, you're going to dilute the product to some extent. And some of the additions have been terrific, obviously, when you look at how good Arizona's been. Houston, obviously, being a recent addition. But also, you don't have 10 teams anymore where you're hoping to get 8 of those 10 into the NCAA tournament. Now it's looking like the Big 12 could get 8 teams in the NCAA tournament, but it's only half the league. And you're looking at part of the league not even really being in contention. I think, and this is off the top of my head, so I'm really hoping that I'm not wrong on this, but if I remember right, in 2018, when Kansas went to the Final Four, the Devontae Graham team, they won the conference that year. I believe Oklahoma State maybe finished last in the Big 12 that year, and I think they might have swept Kansas. And so it was literally an any given Saturday type situation where the worst teams in the league were capable of playing up and beating the best teams in the league. And I just don't know that that's the case. I do think the Big 12, even though there isn't necessarily a team that you look at it today as it is and say this team is a 1 seed, I do think the Big 12 is still pretty strong at the top. I think the middle is solid. I think where you get into the difference is you're not ending at 10 teams. There's an 11th, a 12th, a 13th, and on down. And so I think that's where you start to see the separation is the Big 12 isn't nearly as strong top to bottom just because there are more teams.
Well, the SEC, that's crazy how top-heavy they are.
Yeah.
It is. In Alabama, Auburn plays Saturday. Alabama's in Austin tonight against a Jekyll, whatever you want to feel like, Texas team at times. And then, of course, the SEC with us. Okay, now you've covered recruiting for quite some time, too. And I know it's mainly about the state of Texas. So, in your opinion, how did Kansas pivot from not having the year everyone expected with what they've added to the mix in recruiting, portal, whatever, and then K-State with Chris Kleiman and what the Wildcats have done?
Yeah, it was a weird year for Kansas, right? And it was funny. I was listening to you guys talk just before I came on where you said you were going to break down the schedules of all the different Big 12 teams and say, hey, this team is going to have it easy. This team maybe doesn't play the road games that are as tough. If there's one thing that I learned from this year, and I actually wrote the Big 12 preview for Lindy's, so please don't bring those predictions up. But when you look at those predictions, a big part of the reason that I thought that Kansas would have a big year. Don't get me wrong, the experience was coming back. You had a getting healthy Jalen Daniels, you had Devin Neal, you had a lot of reasons for optimism, but I thought that schedule was going to be so manageable, right? When you looked at it, you're like, oh, you avoid Oklahoma State, you avoid Utah, you avoid Arizona. They avoid a lot of these top teams, and you're playing Arizona State, who is down 15th or 16th. You're playing Houston, and Houston wound up being what I expected for a Willie Fritz team. Exceptionally well coached. Willie Fritz is terrific. You knew they were going to jump up and bite somebody, but they weren't consistent. But other than that, BYU, Arizona State being two of the best teams in the Big 12, like who would have predicted that before the season? And who would have predicted, hey, by the way, Kansas, your schedule looks easy, but you're playing both BYU and Arizona State on the road, and I think that's one of the tough things about projecting this is I thought Arizona State heading into last year was a year away. And obviously they wound up making that leap, but that also speaks to, I think, how good Arizona State has a chance to be this way. And that's a really long way to say Kansas's schedule wound up being a lot tougher than I think we thought it would be heading in. Colorado wound up being a lot better, and that's a team that they actually beat. Arizona State, Kansas has a lead against Arizona State in Tempe in the final minute and loses. And they just kept finding sort of these Lucy pulling the ball away from Charlie Brown ways to lose games at the very end. This was a team that with a couple bounces differently could have been a 10-win team, but they didn't win those games. And at the same time, I thought it was really interesting. We had Devin Neal on the Verbal Commitment podcast, which is the Kansas recruiting podcast that we do. And he said his favorite memory at Kansas was beating the 3 ranked teams in a row this year, even with all the issues they had. And so as weird as it sounds, Kansas came out of a 5-7 season when people thought they were a Big 12 dark horse team as maybe a little bit better than you would have expected because they had the strong close, excepting, of course, the game down in Waco in the season finale. But I think it was actually the sort of thing that people circled, and they were able to go into living rooms and talk about the program's culture, just sort of hey, there was a lot of bad voodoo this season. All this stuff was going against you. You start off 2-6, and you wind up just missing a bowl game. That speaks to the culture. And so they kind of, rolled in the mud and came out smelling like roses, as weird as it sounds. K-State, I think, is in a fascinating position right now because Kansas State also had some close games, but found ways to win those close games. Now you have Avery Johnson heading into his second year as a starter. He's a guy I really like personally, as well as, as a football player. And what I mean by that is not, hey, I'm going over to his house for dinner. I mean, I think he's really strong intangibly and a great leader. And so I'm interested to see the leap there that he makes. He's got a lot of weapons around him. And so when you took that into the recruiting aspect of it, Kansas State has always dominated the state of Kansas pretty much since Mark Mangino left. Kansas had a little bit of a stretch there when Mangino was hot, where they were winning those in-state battles. But other than that, it really hasn't happened that much. Devin Neal was maybe the one, example that you could look at the other way. And Devin Neal had KU posters on his wall when he was 10 years old. So he was always going to go to KU. But all of a sudden, you look into this 2026 class, and Kansas has landed, I think, 5 of the top 10 players in the state. Looks like they're going to add a couple more in there. Kansas State is kind of struggling to generate momentum with those guys. But as we all know, nothing's done until the ink is dry. And in the portal era, nothing is done until the ink is dry and you've been locked into a significant NIL deal for multiple years at your school. But right now, it does look like Kansas is generating some really significant recruiting momentum in state. I still think that Kansas State's going to find players just because that staff is such a tremendous evaluating staff, and they do just such a great job of it.
Kevin, great stuff, man. Great to have you on. I'm glad where you landed. It seems like you're having a great time. Also, the Kansas City Sports Network. We have others that work there that we have on the show occasionally. So thanks for your time. Have a great week.
Thank you very much.
Kevin Flarity, again, the Kansas City Sports Network, college athletics, college basketball. He's really good at that. I sat next to him during that great Baylor comeback against North Carolina up in Fort Worth at the Dickies Arena. Really got to know him at that particular time and ever since. Also, coming up around the corner, I mentioned earlier we had Todd Dodge, former Texas quarterback, high school great, and also coach. Richmond Webb, one of the great linemen in college football and NFL history, he's headed into the Texas Sports Hall of Fame too. In fact, he's next. This is 365 Sports. Don Shumador and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center between Valley Mills and also Richland Drive in Waco. Joshua and Cheyenne are there. 48-foot walk-in humidor. Padron, Cohiba, Rocky Patel, Artur Fuente, Romeo and Julieta, La Fontana, and the wall that they have to the right when you walk in, there's two doors. You walk in the right, to the right, there's a wall with all of the Texas brand or military brand cigars from those who have served for our great country. They have CBD products. It's Vita Dreams, which is what I take a gummy or two at night to get myself rested, and it really does help. But never feel like you're taking something that's taking control of you. It just allows you to kind of calm down. Next thing you know, you're getting a good night's sleep and not having to hit the snooze button maybe as much, although that is kind of an American tradition, right? No matter if you've gotten some great sleep or not. Cigars, CBD, Vita Dreams, and also THC product called For Bad Days. I've had a few of those with my shoulder, and guess what? It works. It's a pretty powerful, potent type thing to take, so be careful with it and get to know it along the way. Vita Dreams, CBD, THC, and cigars. Don Shumador and Coffee Beans in Waco on Valley Mills Drive.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
.365 Sports on this Tuesday evening. Afternoon. Hope you've had a great day. The chat room is well on its way to a memorable day, as it always is. Richmond Webb, great player at A&M, played in the NFL and will be inducted into the Texas Sports Hall of Fame coming up on Saturday evening. Richmond, great to see you. Thanks for your time. I know it's been a busy week. What does this mean to you?
Man, it means everything. You know, I grew up in Texas. I grew up in Dallas, Texas. You know, huge Cowboy fan, and like I said earlier, I played at Texas A&M and had a pretty good career there, and then went on to the Miami Dolphins and played there and had a great run there. So to come back home, I live in the Houston area now, but to come back home and be honored and be considered one of the Texas greats that ever played, you know, not only football, but it's a Texas Sports Hall of Fame. So you're competing against the best of the best in different sports, and to be honored, it's a huge accomplishment. So I'm definitely honored.
You went from blocking for Bucky Richardson in that crew to Dan Marino. And Bucky was an option guy, used to be a linebacker. Dan Marino was the greatest passer in the history of the NFL until just recently, where people came and got him. What was the stark difference going from that power offense that was a lot of option at A&M to then being tasked with don't let the king of Miami ever get touched?
You know, and at A&M, we didn't throw the ball as much. Like you said, we were run dominant option. It was almost like having 3 running backs at times because Bucky would keep it a lot of the times. And great college quarterback, and even played for the Oilers for a few years, this and that. So going from that to throwing the football probably 80-85% of the time, and then getting to South Florida where Dan Marino was already a legend. I think he had been in the league 7-8 years by the time me and Keith Sims got there. So we had to do a total 180-degree spin, protect, the franchise quarterback, and then learn how to pass block. And, I give a ton of credit to my offensive line coach, John Sandusky. He's one of the best bigs, rest in peace now, but he was definitely instrumental in developing me and getting me ready so we could play as rookies on the blind side of the quarterback in Miami, and back in 1990 when we both came in as the number 1, number 2 pick, and for the Dolphins.
So Richmond, Paul mentioned, and you talked about your time with the Dolphins, time with A&M. How much of Dallas, Texas, and Dallas Roosevelt and those experiences coming up, how much of those stuck with you, and what are the ones that kind of stood out and helped carry you through, the other parts of your life and your career?
Yeah, I look at it now, and it's still great. College football, high school football, play here in the state of Texas. I'm in Houston now, but still a Dallas guy. I think the biggest thing is that I noticed is, growing up in the inner city, the gene pool, what I mean by that, guys that played in the inner city, a lot of them live in the suburbs now. So you see all these schools that maybe not be right in the city, but because their parents live in the suburbs. So you see in Houston, Katy, Permian, schools like that. But if you go look and kind of go back, their parents probably played in HISD or whatever. The same way in Dallas. But I think the other thing different now is I can remember growing up in my neighborhood, we look forward to playing for the high school we was, so I look forward to going to Roosevelt High School, took pride in it, didn't even consider going to other schools. And, the guys that were older than me, I looked up to those guys because they played for Roosevelt and this and that. And I think it's a little different now where guys just, if it's where they can go play and they read a really good program and, they'll go play for another school. And, I understand it now, it's just different, but the level of hadn't dropped off at all. I mean, it's tremendous. You see these guys, a lot of these guys go straight out of high school and go to like a Ohio State or a D1 school like that, and are able to compete because they're great. And I think athletics just keeps evolving. I'm happy to see that.
Richmond, talk about the changes in where we are. When you were at A&M, you received initially a $25,000 scholarship from the Dallas Engineering Society, but you couldn't take it. And plus you were on a full ride at A&M, but you couldn't, you're laughing here, you couldn't take money. We know that there are stories about high school and college recruiting back in the day, but now you could take it because of the way that it is with NIL and whatever money you could earn, how much things have changed.
It's definitely changed, and I think it's a good thing. I talked with Jerry Ball, a good friend of mine. He played at SMU, and we talk about in a recent. And I think the thing that I heard that they implemented at SMU is you get the money, but you got to take financial literacy course about investing, this and that. So they're not just giving them the money; they're educating them on them. And I would like to see platforms all across, at the universities, because a kid like me, when I came out of Roosevelt, I didn't know a lot about investing. I knew to kind of save my money, but maybe putting a little bit in the stock market, or maybe finding some real estate to invest in. I'm not saying you got to do everything at one time, but it's places you can put your money to start getting it to grow. And the younger you can get money for you, the better. So I would like to see that implemented. I know everybody's not going to take the advice, but at least you can say, no, we prepared you, or we introduced this to you, It was your decision, and you decided not to do it. So you can't look back and say, well, man, they just used me for whatever it's got. So I would like to see an educational platform put in at different universities, because a lot of them, they get, I mean, the money is substantial, and it could make a huge difference. You know, even if you don't play professional football, it's enough now to where they're paying a lot of these guys. If you're really good, you can be pretty much set for life, or you can really help your family, but you want to do it the right way, get the money working for you, and then you can help some people. So that's what I'd love to see.
Richmond, you played against a lot of great defensive linemen. Which one would you never have wanted to face again after the first time?
I ain't gonna say never. I think the toughest guy I played against for sure was Bruce Smith, and I would see twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year. I think the way I approached it is, once you play against the best, you want to play against the best, because that's going to make you come with your best game. So I always looked forward to the challenge. I know it was not easy. And, you know, Bruce Smith was a guy, everybody talks about the sack records, but he's got over 200 sacks. But I think the thing that made it so tough was he was just as tough as against the run as he was against the pass. And a lot of people don't talk about that. They just say he's the all-time NFL sack leader. But when you got to watch film and you got to study this guy, and you know he's gonna play like hell for 60 minutes, and he's a guy that played all 3 downs. He wasn't just a pass rusher. That's what I kind of look forward to, because that was a measuring stick. Say, okay, if I can play against a guy like this, not this going to be easy, but if I can match up with him, I've got a pretty good shot against, you know, other people. But I know it wasn't going to be an easy task, so I always look forward to matchups like that.
You played a violent sport, and you played in 118 consecutive games as a starter, which is a record, the Dolphins' record, and eventually your body just wears down. I mean, you're a big man, but you're playing in the trenches. That's an amazing streak, Richmond. How many times during that 118 games could you have just said, no, I can't do it today?
You know, yeah, everybody talks about the streak, and I think I just heard where a quarterback had played 200-some games. I just can't remember. But I think the thing with the streak is, and even when I was with the Dolphins, I didn't really find out about the streak until I got close to breaking whoever had the streak before me. So I think that's a great thing, because you don't need to start focusing on this. That's a distraction for me. And I remember it was like a game or two, and they said, "Oh, you got a chance to break the streak." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I just tried to say, make it through this game. My body is sore. Let me get through Monday and Tuesday, because Wednesday is going to start back up, and start preparing for the next, you know, the next opponent or the next game we had to play and this and that. But never really focused on the record or the streak. And I think that's with any player. If you keep mentioning it to them, I think it'll be more detrimental to them than, you know, them focusing on what they need to focus on. So I'm glad they did not try to say, hey, I got some nicks and bruises. Let me try to get ready, so I'll be ready to go again on Sunday.
What was it like when Jimmy Johnson showed up as the head coach of the Dolphins?
Well, it was different. You know, I got drafted by, you know, Hall of Fame coach Don Shula, tremendous respect. So I knew about, you know, Jimmy Johnson, you know, what he had did with the Cowboys and stuff like that. So when he came to Miami, one of my former teammates, Kevin Smith, played for Jimmy at Dallas, and he won 3 Super Bowls with the Cowboys. And I called him and said, "Hey, man, what's up? What I need to do? You know, this and that. Is anything I need to know?" And he said, "No." He said, "You don't have any problems." He said, "As long as you work hard." He said, "You're not a guy that's going to give him problems." So he said, "As long as you just work hard and practice, you consistent, you're not going to have any issues." He was a tough coach, very smart coach. I mean, knew the game and prepared for something as well. It's a little different than Coach Shula, but another great coach. So I didn't have any problems with him. I just know I had to work hard, but I was used to that already. So I made the transition pretty easily.
1990s all-decade team in the NFL. Of course, first-round pick, you mentioned that, and also all of what you did. I mentioned to start off the interview what this means. How emotional will Richmond Webb be Saturday evening when it's your time to talk in front of all those people?
I think I'll be emotional. I think the thing that I'm most appreciative of is I understand that this is a team sport. And even when, I got accolades, I was with the Dolphins or whatever, I never forget about my teammates because, that's what I play for. I never played to say, well, I need to get here. I need to get here. I just never wanted to be the weak link. And so that's how I approached the game. And the good thing, I have to be very vocal because when I was in college, normally the quarterback does the talking. So that was either Bucky Richardson. And then when I got to Miami, it was Marino. So I'll speak and, thank the committee, definitely thank God for allowing me to put me in this position. My family, my support system, my teammates, everybody that played part in this. I tell people all the time, you don't get anywhere by yourself. I've had a lot of help along the way, whether it was teachers, coaches, name it, just getting good advice and people helping me keep my head on straight and encouraging me to do the right things and keep working hard and doing this and that. So I got to give gratitude to them, but I'm definitely honored to receive this award. But man, I've had a lot of help along the way, and I'm not bashful or I'm not, that type of guy that says, I did this all by myself, because I know I didn't. But it's a lot of people that's happy for me and proud of me. So that gives me a good feeling down inside. I did some things right.
Thank you, man. Congratulations. We'll see you Saturday. Thanks for your time today. Much deserved of what you've done, earned what you've done to be a part of the Texas Sports Hall of Fame. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Richmond Webb. Roosevelt High School. He had two teammates, Aaron Wallace and Kevin Williams, both really good football players that went to school with him at Roosevelt High School in Dallas.
I just now, as he hung up, I remember this story. He probably doesn't.
Call him back.
But I met Richard. Richmond Webb has been coming and supporting the Texas Sports Hall of Fame for years.
Yep.
Had not an inductee until this year, which is a little bit long overdue, considering how good he is. It's also long overdue that he doesn't have that gold jacket yet, but I think that'll come. He's a two-time All-Pro first team, two-time All-Pro second team, a Pro Bowler, all 90s decade team. Like, he's going to get there.
And again, that streak of playing, and that doesn't hurt either. This is a gamer. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first time I met him, my father, who had this A&M ball, he was getting autographed by all the Aggies that came to that thing. And he walked up to him, and it was Richmond Webb, and I was always a big Richmond Webb guy. Mostly because I played offensive line, so I always liked to, and he played at A&M. So my dad dragged him across the room, waving at me, going, "Hey, Paul, it's Richmond Webb." I was like, "Yeah, I see him. He's a foot taller than my dad." And I was, "Yeah, Dad, I see him. Great. This is, and Richmond could have been nicer." Of course, my dad and Richmond wound up talking for the rest of the night, how it went. And then Dad went to the golf tournament or whatever it was and would talk to him. And I just that story occurred to me of the first time I met him and how embarrassed I was. I was like, "Oh my God, here we go." But,
he was left out of the finalists for the NFL Pro Football Hall of Fame, the class that was announced over the weekend. They only, elected 4. Darren Woodson left out, which, again, there's a bunch of great names in there. But he was at least involved in that and then left out of the finalist list. Great player with the Miami Dolphins. When we come back, Craig Smoak. It's been a while. And off the radar, this is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Right now, you have more menu. That's one of the codes that they have. It's called Spend $7.99 or more and add-on items starting at $5 each. So, example, let's say you order a pizza that's a small pizza, got maybe a topping or two on it, but you get everything else added either on the pizza or anything else you add from the menu for $5. That's it. You go online, Marcos.com. The new Marcos More Menu. Bob Mock, who owns 5 locations in the Waco area, told me this was coming up just around the corner. There's always that lunch special, any Pozzoli or 20-ounce bottle of drink for $7.99, triple pepperoni magnifico, which when you look at it, it looks like somebody just took an entire bag of pepperoni and just put it on top of the pizza. There's no room for anything else. It is absolutely delicious if you want to, just get yourself all up against the triple pepperoni magnifico. 5 locations in Waco. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
Alan Samuels House of Travel is a full-service travel agency with highly experienced travel consultants plus support staff with over a combined 150 years in the travel business. They are ready to take care of any travel situation for you, your family, and your business, and with the kind of knowledge to complete a seamless itinerary trip start to finish. They will search for the best deal to accommodate your budget from air to cars, ship to shore, hotel, and even meeting space. Name a destination and they've been there. They know the places to go, and international and missionary travel is one of their unique specialties. Alan Samuels House of Travel, celebrating 50 years in business. Call Connie, Sherry, Linda, or Bambi at 254-776-2560 or find them on Facebook or at houseoftravelwaco.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
Welcome in to Off the Radar here on 365 Sports, Tuesdays and Thursdays, taking a look at a grab bag of stories, depending on kind of what the temperature is around the sports world. And I think there's enough. I was kind of worried earlier today, much like you were worried about the actual show itself with just headlines. There wasn't a whole lot that seemingly was going on, and particularly with college football, we've now had a few stories that have dropped and been just fine in that regard. But there's a few things outside of that world that we can talk about here, and that will start with the big Super Bowl rating that has come in after Sunday's game between the Philadelphia Eagles and Kansas City Chiefs. That saw the Eagles turn that into a blowout pretty early and pretty quickly and pretty authoritatively. And that left a lot of people wondering, well, how many people actually watched the entire game, or how many people tuned out and started, doing something else around the house or whatever it might have been. Did y'all watch the whole thing? I did. I mean, I was like, this is the last football game of the year. It's not entertaining, but I'm going to watch it. You watched through the whole way? Think your mic's now out, okay? All right, well, the numbers are in. And
all right, how's that?
All right,
okay, that works.
Yeah.
The numbers are in, and Fox Sports is talking about an initial projected viewership that came in at an average of 127.7 million viewers across Fox, Fox Deportes, and then you got Tubi, Telemundo, all the NFL properties. So it's not like it's just 70 million people watched on ABC. It's like, no, it's 127.7 million across multiple properties, but I don't think you're really too concerned about how many properties that was. It was a new high viewership for the Super Bowl and up 3% from last year's 123.7. So despite it not being a very entertaining game, it still brought in a lot of eyeballs. The highest mark that it reached, 137.7 million people in the second quarter before all hell broke loose. So imagine if that game had stayed competitive. You might be talking about 140 plus million viewers, but the highest it got was before the dam broke, 137.7 million viewers. I'll get to the halftime show in a second because there's something there as well, but college football is never touching the NFL and never getting numbers like this, and that's fine. No sport is in America, but, I mean, we talk about this during the regular season, like Ohio State versus Michigan gets like 20 whatever, and then you get like Bengals Jets, which means nothing really, and it gets 5 million more viewers than the biggest game in college football. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to compare this to the national championship game. It's well over 100 million more people watch the Super Bowl. But yeah, big audience. They're excited about that.
A third of the people who reside in this country, along with those we don't know who do, but a third of our country watched the damn game.
Yeah.
It's not a football game. It's an event.
It's an event,
and that still feels low to me. I know there's 200 million people that, like, I get, but, like, it just – I'm always baffled by the fact that, like, there's somebody in every office that when you go in and people are talking about the game, it's like, no, I didn't watch. I don't know what's going on. And you're like, how do you – of all the things that you miss, like, I get, like, you missed the Dancing with the Stars finale.
Right.
Like, whatever else you're missing, that's fine. But the Super Bowl, I would just feel like such an idiot if I was like, no, I didn't watch.
I can see where they don't.
I can't really. I mean, I understand if you don't watch the whole thing because you're not a football fan, but there's nothing else on at that time.
You wonder if somebody at least glanced at it. Like,
of course. And well, it's also not counting for the 17 people that Jerry had at his house and the 37 people they had at the work party and the. I mean, so it's definitely more than 137 million people watching it, but that was the high peak. The average again, 127.7 million, a new high viewership. And I don't know, like, because you know how, like, with PR stuff, there can be a little sorcery going on or a little sleight of hand. So I don't know, like, in comparison to how many channels used to show it, whereas now you're counting Deportes and you're counting Tubi and you're counting, all these outlets. So I don't know how much that affects things really, if it has any effect at all. But a big number. And if you were wondering, people still tuned in by the boatload, and it's because it's an event no matter who's playing, like you said. And that includes the halftime show. For all of the debate about Kendrick Lamar and whether or not he was entertaining or whether or not you enjoyed it or what have you, I said yesterday on the show, I'm a Kendrick Lamar fan. He's not somebody that I listen to on a regular basis, but I appreciate his artistry, I appreciate his messaging. And that was certainly a big part of the halftime show, which I told you I was not super locked in on, but there were, if you know Kendrick and you pay attention to him and kind of his symbolism and things, like Serena Williams, for example, there was some symbolism with her being there. There's a lot of things like that if you were a Kendrick Lamar mark, you were like, brains exploding over that. But if you're just an average Joe, you might not have been all that impressed, or you just didn't really, it wasn't your bag, but it was a lot of people's bag. The halftime show with Kendrick Lamar, 133.5 million viewers across all platforms in that window of 15 minutes or so that he was performing, which is up a little bit from last year's nearly 130 million. The key thing about this is that it was, because of that number, or it is, I should say, now the most watched Super Bowl halftime show in history. So Kendrick Lamar now has that mark, passing Michael Jackson for the most watched Super Bowl halftime show in history. And they also had record streaming and Tubi and all that other stuff. But for us, as much of a snoozer as the game was, the NFL seems awfully happy with the numbers that they got in return for the Super Bowl viewing.
I was entertained by the halftime show because I was looking for all that stuff.
Sure,
I was looking for it. I really like it.
How does he diss Drake? I
was upset. There was a couple songs I wanted to sing that he didn't sing that were more upbeat, but and especially I don't like Drake, so I was happy to see that little part of it. But
Drake, not living his best life right now.
Would it have been a huge disappointment if he wouldn't have taking a shot at Drake?
I mean, just by singing the song,
are those
he
two
does.
guys actually best friends and they're just making?
No, I don't think it's not like blood feud. They're not that type of. Neither one of those guys are that type of cat. But
they don't like each other. But
like not like us is about Drake. So if he just sang the song and didn't bring Serena out or wear the A necklace or
like there were so many things like that.
What's up, Drake?
Yeah.
Like when he was doing it, he just by singing the song, he's embarrassing Drake at a Super Bowl halftime show, which, by the way, means that he's won the beef.
Oh, yeah, he's definitely won. You're in the biggest
he had
Super
already
Bowl.
won the beef, but he's now run the score up.
No, yeah, he had already won it, and that song is the biggest song in the country over the last year. I think pretty easily. It clears most any hurdle. And so he was going to probably play that regardless. It was a matter of, like, does he say a certain line, like the A minor line? And he did. He did say it. And, do they make references to Drake? And they did. And, and then he, like I said, there's a lot of symbolism in there.
His ex-girlfriend's out there dancing.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of ex-girlfriends. I mean, so, like, he's one of the masters at, like, throwing shade and the symbolism and all of that. And so if you're a fan of all that stuff, then you loved it and you ate it up. And if you're not, like, you just didn't understand it or it wasn't your type of music, but it was plenty of people's because it's the most watched Super Bowl halftime show in history. So there's a couple of numbers from the Super Bowl and what went down in terms of viewership. I think they're probably pretty happy about that. And I will wonder for a while, like, what would that number have been if it was actually competitive? Because you've got a fan base like Philly. You've got the fan base that is not a fan of either team, but they're just anti-Chief or they're anti-Eagle. And I kind of find myself like, I don't want the Chiefs to keep winning in a way because, like, we've gotten so much of them, but then I don't really want to see Philadelphia win a Super Bowl either. So, like, I just was a neutral observer. But if that had been competitive, I think that it might have been, like, crazy numbers, which is crazy because we're already talking about 130 plus million people.
Yeah, I know it is nuts. And I spite watched a lot of it, like as far as
sure.
I didn't want to see a three-peat because I just didn't. I don't know why.
I don't want to see that broken, honestly. I kind of want to see that just be out there and be unattainable for some. It's kind of like college football with the three-peat.
I just didn't want to see it, and then I started like cheering for the Eagles, which is something I've never done in my life. Only because I think the Eagles continue to win. And look, here's the thing. I told Garrett this yesterday. If this only extends to the Super Bowl. If an NFC East team makes it to the Super Bowl, I will want them to win. Not because of any kind of division pride, but that seems to be the
NFC East.
That seems to be the last thing that could maybe happen to where Jerry goes, wait, Washington won one? Philly won again? New York won again? Like New York, especially if New York and Washington somehow win one before they do, which Washington very well could. If New York then does it after that, then that needs to shake you out of your doldrums and your so-called drought.
Right.
Well,
Jackass.
Philadelphia did win recently, and that didn't seem to shake him up much.
No, but now it's 2.
Yeah.
And they've been to a whole lot more of them since the Cowboys have. They've been to a ton of NFC Championship games. They're
8 of them since the Cowboys were in 95.
They're right on the door. And then look, the Cowboys successfully got Andy Reid out of the division before he won a Super Bowl for the Eagles, and then he's just gone and won 3 of them now with the Chiefs.
I did feel like we didn't avoid a blowout, but I think had it gone the other direction and Washington to beat Philly, I think the Chiefs might have blown. I don't think that they would have been as competitive as the Eagles were.
No, here's the thing. Philadelphia's front 6-8, whatever on defense are just they're
Washington's
angry,
got like 2 of those guys.
Angry dogs, man. They're just violent in a loving way. Watching football the way I love to see it.
Washington has like maybe 2, like Jonathan Allen, and but they
Wagner.
don't have the full array, like the entire Georgia team from like 2 years ago. So there was that record audience for the Super Bowl despite the blowout. Meanwhile, you guys kind of touched on this with Richmond Webb, but the Pro Football Hall of Fame announcing its latest class. We had not mentioned this. Eric Allen, speaking of the Eagles, former Philly, New Orleans, and Oakland Raiders cornerback. He was elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame this past weekend. Also, Jared Allen, defensive end for the Chiefs and the Vikings and the Bears and the Panthers, elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, as well as Antonio Gates. he moved cities because San Diego to L.A., but he was a Charger. Didn't have like the multiple stops anywhere, just the Chargers. Antonio Gates is now a Pro Football Hall of Famer, as is wide receiver Sterling Sharp of the Green Bay Packers. And I don't know if y'all saw Shannon breaking the news. His brother Shannon surprising him with the news that he was a Pro Football Hall of Famer. Shannon's a very emotional man. I feel like I've seen him cry more than like just about anybody over the last year.
Might make him popular.
The last time
he already is very popular.
Yeah. The last time Shannon Sharp video popped up on my Twitter feed, it was not as fun to watch. So I appreciate it.
Oh, really? You didn't try to
that lady sounded like she was crying a little bit, but it sounded like fun crying.
Yeah, no, she a couple of people in that were having fun. I was not.
That was
was that a setup too?
No, I don't think that was.
Yeah, you wonder.
He didn't really. No, I mean because he didn't really need that. It was good timing,
you're
but
right,
he didn't
you're
really
right.
need that to take. Like the Cat Williams stuff did him such a favor, but it was cool. If you didn't see it, Shannon Sharp, he's right there with McAfee and I'd say Stephen A. and a few others as far as like the tippity top of like sports media right this very moment. So it was very cool to see him be able to surprise his brother Sterling, who looked like he was just coming over to the house to like hang out and chill out with his brother, and instead there's Shannon in what looked like the basement playroom or something, and he's got his gold jacket on, and Sterling walks in with no idea what's going on, and then he's obviously very surprised, and so he makes it in.
Sterling was a hell of a receiver.
Well, I wanted to ask y'all this. What did y'all think of this class? I mean, because I was not expecting Sterling Sharp to go into this class. Antonio Gates, that seemed like a no-brainer. I didn't really have an opinion on Jared Allen, and I was not expecting Eric Allen. That just seemed kind of out of the blue. But what did y'all think of this class of the inductees?
Obviously, it's a little small, only 4.
Yeah.
And then there's the Veterans Committee guys, too.
Right.
Very disappointed that Darren Woodson didn't get in. I know he will one day, but it's just like
well, I mean, a lot of others didn't get in. There's 15 finalists. That means about 10 or 11 didn't get in.
But yeah, I mean, really, I mean, we just talked to Woody like the day before, so it was probably maybe a little more fresh with that, but
walked into the belly of the beast, and he even talked about that.
Yeah.
Coming back to be where he may not get the right call.
Yeah, and that really sucks. His whole family was invested in it, but Eric Allen, I'd kind of forgotten about him too, but he was a badass for the Eagles. He was fantastic. So everybody very deserving. I think Jared Allen was the one that surprised me the most. I mean, there's always there's always a name in there that you've kind of maybe forgotten about from the past. But Jared Allen did surprise me a little bit. But then his numbers. I mean, he's one of the best defensive ends of his era, and that's like if I was a Hall of Fame voter, and when the question I will ask. Because you have to base it to me on eras. Unless you just have an era of, really bad left tackles. Like there's just nobody who was good. But if you were consistently an all-pro, consistently the best, the most feared in your era, then to me you're a Hall of Famer. Because numbers are going to change over time. Sacks weren't an official statistic. So there are guys, that played way back when that might have 1,000 sacks if it was official.
Deacon Jones and all. Here's the thing.
But so that's
if you were the best player at your position for 8 to 10 years, a decade then you're a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
And again, there's debates about Eli Manning or Steve Smith, the wide receiver who was dynamic. I never thought of him as a Hall of Fame. I thought he was a good. There's also compilers, stats compilers. And sometimes those guys can win out on those who might have been the best at their position during a certain amount of time.
Yeah, if Eli gets in, he's got to thank Tom Brady because those Super Bowls are what's carrying him in. There's not a debate without those, but I know that's the case. Super Bowls carry a lot of weight. By the way, I learned something today. I think I knew this before, but it just been so long since I was reminded of this. Y'all know what college Sterling Sharp went to?
He went, oh my gosh, in South Carolina.
Yes. Yeah. He is the first ever Gamecock to make the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Wow.
So I thought that was a pretty cool little note. South Carolina State has 4 Pro Football Hall of Famers.
Yeah, the Negro League or the ability of schools like Texas A&I, Grambling,
like
Darrell Green, Gene Upshaw, some of those at other schools, Jackson State with Peyton.
HBCUs.
They flooded the NFL. They really, really did. And now you don't see as many schools, like, of course, Travis Hunter and Shedeur, et cetera, were at Jackson State before they went to Colorado, but you don't see that quite as much because players are now getting more and more opportunities to be seen.
Yeah. So, I just found that interesting. First ever South Carolina Gamecock, Sterling Sharp to be voted to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The South Carolina State guys, for what it's worth, Harry Carson.
Absolutely.
Deacon Jones.
Yep.
Marion Motley and Donnie Shell.
Yep.
Those are the 4 South Carolina
Donnie Shell
State guys.
That Steelers secondary with Mel Blount and Donnie Shell would come up and knock the shit out of you. I mean, they were, of course, they had others too that were playing that position.
So do you want a couple more notes? I got a couple of other headlines. All right. Kellen Moore is officially a head coach in the National Football League. Former Cowboys OC. He is now the head coach of the New Orleans Saints and reported per the insiders, as Garrett has on the graphic here. This has been talked about for days now, but it's just becoming official. So, he wins the Super Bowl on Sunday.
And was not a distraction.
No. Did his interviews and all of that during the playoffs and wins a Super Bowl ring, and his quarterback has a great showing, and now he's off to go coach up the Saints. And I know there's a lot of doubters about Kellen Moore, that maybe he doesn't have the kind of attitude maybe necessary for a head coach, or the demeanor, if you will, or maybe he's just too big. I don't know. Whatever. There's definitely people I've read or heard that don't really buy in yet to him being a head coach, but he's going to get his shot, and we're going to see. And we're going to see down where you guys just were in New Orleans.
Yeah, I think he'll be a good head coach one day. I don't know if it's going to be immediately with the Saints. They have negative $56 million in cap space, and I'm not exaggerating that number. I looked it up earlier.
That's insane.
They have to clear out some veterans. Derek Carr, Cam Jordan, among them are probably going to get the boot. Like, that's the quickest way for them to get under and not renegotiate with older players. So I would think that, he's going to have to roll out there with a Spencer Rattler at quarterback next year and kind of fight through it for a little bit.
I think Rattler will be a better pro than he was a collegiate player.
Yeah, I do.
He's not going to. I don't think he'll be an all-pro.
It was his tools and attributes that made him a 5-star to begin with. That's the type of stuff that carries over. So long as you don't just go off on a drug binge or something.
Garrett Gilbert was actually a little bit of a better pro than he was a college player. Not Garrett Gilbert. Well, maybe it was. Like, he
was trying to say, was he?
Longer career.
From Lake Travis.
Well, we remember him for Texas. He went to SMU.
SMU. But like so you have those things. But I think he'll be a little bit of a better. Like, he wasn't a bad college player. He just didn't reach the heights of the number one player in the country.
He had a Netflix show when he was still a teenager, so he had pretty high mark to clear, and I do think he'll turn out to be pretty okay. So last thing, unless you guys want to hear the latest on Luka.
Oh, God, no. I was going to bring him up at the end.
No, I mean, there is something to say about that, and it's the way the Mavericks handled things last night, which just makes me hate them even worse. But Clayton Kershaw coming back to Major League Baseball, coming to an agreement with the L.A. Dodgers. Will close on a little bit of a baseball note. 3-time Cy Young winner will play his 18th season in Dodger blue. So pending a physical, this will all become official by tomorrow, I do believe, and he'll make between $5 and $10 million for next season, but he'll be a part of the Dodgers once again. He's going to be 37 this upcoming spring, so old Clayton Kershaw getting up there, but he's going to hang around before calling it quits, and it is one of those, though, you're like, is this the last one? It very well could be, but, won't know for sure until he actually calls it quits. But there was some talk about it, and now it's going to be put off for now. He's going to be back for at least one more year in L.A., and we'll see what happens.
Well, why wouldn't you want to come and play with this
team? Oh, my God,
team?
dude. Yeah, especially with what they just did.
I mean, he's the 7th starter. Like, he doesn't have to
to watch the hitters you have play every night. Like, just sit in the bench or in the bullpen and watch those guys.
The top 4 alone of Ohtani, Mookie, Freddie Freeman, and Teoscar Hernandez, I would be entertained. Like, I would just take a nap between the other 5 hitters if they weren't. I mean, they're all good, and they've added a lot. But the pitching staff, like, I would want to be a part of this pitching staff. With now they've added Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow's back, Ohtani's going to be pitching again, Hiroki Sasaki, Ohtani's back on the mound. They're like, I'm leaving somebody out, but they're like,
Yamamoto.
they're set up. Yeah, Yamamoto. So, dear God.
Yeah, they're set. So, yeah, he doesn't have to be like the ace. Like he can just like
he can throw underhand.
Exactly.
They'll be fine.
Like, so, yeah, why would you not do that and make a few $1 million and enjoy playing baseball for a little bit longer? So, yeah, there you go with that. There's a few things off the radar. That's typically how we do it. We can talk about the Luka thing if you want to here or later or whatever. But
no, we can do it real quick. Go to a break. We don't have 45 minutes for you to respond to it. No, somebody in the chat earlier today said, please ask Craig about Luka.
I mean, I said what I had to say, and I got most of it off my chest. I'm never going to heal. No, I could have easily gone like 2 hours on that. Are you kidding me?
I know.
I mean, we don't have to get back into it and rehash it.
No, let's just last night.
Last night, the Mavs played, the Lakers played. Luka made his Lakers debut, had a fine game. He's clearly knocking some rust off. They won. They even did a thing like where he got introduced last because LeBron allowed that. So LeBron did a little nod and honored him, allowed him to be introduced last. And so it's all warm and fuzzy in LA, guys. Imagine that. They just added Luka freaking Doncic. So they love life. They're loving life right now. Meanwhile, in Dallas, there were a couple fans that got kicked out. There was the, I guess, in-game camera, like the kiss cam or the whatever cam. The camera fell on these people during the course of the game, and I think it was like a karaoke thing or something, but one of the people mouthed, "Fire Nico." And then another one of them had a sign that said, "Fire Nico." And I think there might have been more than one. And so they ended up getting kicked out of the game. Dumont was there and got booed. But there was a lot of unhappy people, as you might imagine, and these two people were two of them, and they got booted. And according to Tim McMahon, it was not because of just Nico specifically, but there are NBA rules that are say you don't disparage people or you don't have anything negative on your sign or something along those lines. And so that's why they got kicked out of the building. But it was notable, and you did wonder how people were going to respond. So a couple of them ended up getting kicked out for expressing their fire Nico. The only thing I would have done differently, I would have had a sign, and it would have had a 4-letter F word starting it, and then Nico right after it, but it wouldn't have said fire. So I would have been kicked out as well, but my sign would have been a tad bit different. So, yeah, when I first saw that, I was like, this is conspiracy level 10, and then it's no, the NBA rules or Mavericks rules state that we don't allow certain, negative feelings on signs and shirts and whatnot, and so that's why they got kicked out. I still find it to be pretty damn lame, and I'm not sure I fully buy it from this organization anymore, whatever they have to say, but I applaud those that let their feelings be known. Good on you. It was worth getting booted, and so there you go. There's a few things off the radar.
Mark Cuban didn't like the people.
I did not know.
Either.
I did not know that unless something was profane, obscene, a sign that there were rules on what you could say. And that's just the Mavericks. When you're wrong and then somebody does that, you get even more upset because you know you're wrong. And telling that person who might have been a 10-year season ticket holder.
Yeah.
Might have been there when the 90s, when they were the most atrocious franchise maybe among all time. You might have just broken that guy. He said fire Nico. He mouthed it. He didn't flip anybody off. I saw the video. That's just a little bit too much.
Yeah, and there was signs too as well, but there was a couple of people that there was actually an explanation for. Apparently there might have been or were others that were also escorted at some point for probably doing something similar. And the Mark Cuban thing you mentioned, I think he got some people that were throwing some stuff his way, Paul, because sure, you would have never have allowed this to happen, but who sold the team to these people that did it?
You did allow it to happen.
You sold it to these people knowing that they didn't care about it as much as you did. Mm-hmm. And you actually also, you hired Nico Harrison. Mm-hmm. So you do get some of the blame, but yeah, he got a little taste of it as well. So that's why he probably wasn't too happy. But yeah, that's going to go on for a while, fellas. And I honestly, I'm not going to make too much about it, but because I've said all I need to say, but I really am curious of the future of the franchise. You're talking about a franchise that's played in 3 NBA finals in the last decade plus that had never, they were the worst team in the NBA when I was growing up. It wasn't close. They were the Cleveland Browns of the NBA. And they've now won a title, played for a couple of others. They've got this young kid. You're just there a year ago, and you fell short. And now, yeah, you still got some name recognition and some star power, but I just don't know if it's ever going to be the same. I really don't. So this might be one of those things you look back on, you're like, with the Bambino curse, and you look back on the Doncic trade, and like that was the moment the Mavs were cursed for the rest of their existence. We'll see, but there you go.
And then, of course, the guy you get, the main piece, is hurt and out probably for at least for a month or so. All right, when we come back, an athletic director within the Big 12 is retiring, and a couple of other good notes when it comes to college football. And Craig brought up where Sterling Sharp went to college. Let's go over the colleges, since we do a lot of college football, of the 15 finalists and where they went to school. That and more. This is 365 Sports. So the weekly specials at Waco Custom Marketplace, I went by there. It would have been Saturday. Went by there to get some bone-in ribeyes. They have a marketplace that's got a butcher shop, full-service butcher shop. The main thing they have there is beef, but there are there's on display pork and poultry and, of course, seafood too. I was looking for tiger shrimp, but they didn't have that. I was going to do some bacon-wrapped tiger shrimp to have to watch and eat during the Super Bowl. What they do have, 2 pounds of 21 to 25 easy peel shrimp for $11.99 a bag. They have brisket, select, choice, and prime from $3.99 a pound to $4.99. Bone-in choice ribeye steak, $16.99 a pound. I was there. Brian Bauer, the owner, had a chance to visit with him. We talked a little Baylor sports and athletics. He's a huge Baylor fan, but also just a little bit about the business. Full-service butcher shop, full-service bakery with sweets and treats and pies and cakes and bread and kolaches and more. Waco Custom Marketplace at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Kick off the Start Something New sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Drive home the 2025 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo for just $36,995. Plus, Ford owners get an extra $2,000 Conquest bonus cash. Don't wait, these deals won't last long.
Come by, let's be friends.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don Humidor in the Town West Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
BYU's looking for a new athletic director. Tom Homo, former NFL player, hell of a player at BYU. In fact, we've had him on the show a couple of different times, announcing that he is going to retire. Has been there 20 years as their athletic director up in Provo. Announced he'll retire at the end of the athletic season, so in May, June of this summer. He was a hell. We really enjoyed when all the expansion stuff was changing. And remember when BYU was accepted, we had Kalani Sitake on a lot, but Tom Homo, we had him on also at a Big 12 Media Days event too. So congratulations to him, and he now gets to go off and enjoy retirement and also hopefully have a chance to smell the roses.
Yeah, I'm gonna miss his Halloween costumes. That was one of he's a legend, man. He was Genie, I think, this year. I mean, full blue.
It's like Jafar paint last year or something.
Yeah. So he's rocked it, and he's also rocked it as their AD. Finally got him into a power conference, which was a a much more than 20-year battle for BYU.
Yep.
Obviously. So he did everything they needed him to do, and he leaves that athletic program in great shape.
Yeah, I appreciate somebody who has fun with Halloween. I always enjoyed it was Roseanne and Home Improvement in particular would always have fun Halloween episodes where they would go all out, and you could tell it was like a Halloween episode, and they would have everything all decorated up. So people that are super into that, I respect it. And he's got some cool costumes that we've seen here of late and have paid more attention of late because of the big move that you mentioned. That'll be the defining moment or accomplishment of his legacy outside of just the personal day-to-day stuff. That was getting BYU in the Big 12, without a doubt. So accomplishing that, I don't know how much left was out there for him to feel like he needed to do, because that was a pretty big one, and that was awesome to talk about at the time. And then it's also been cool to see them in the league and to have the opportunity to talk to him and to Kalani Sitake on a few occasions. We've always enjoyed that. I'm trying to think. Last time we talked to him, was it like
Kalani?
No, to
Homo?
Tom Homo.
It would have been 2 years ago at Big 12 Media Days.
Was it in Vegas at Big 12 Media Days?
Where were they?
I feel like I don't know did we interview him? I know I talked to him.
Yeah, I feel like we talked to him. Maybe he's off mic. But, yeah, anyways, he was always really nice to us and a great ambassador for BYU. So congratulations on the next phase of your life. But, yeah, leave some big shoes to fill.
He was a head coach at Cal for 4 or 5 years and terrible. He admitted he was a terrible head coach. He was 16-39, then became the AD at BYU, associate AD for 5 years, and then became the AD in 2005. 4-time Super Bowl champion. He was a part of that run when Joe Montana, and also I think maybe his last one might have been with Steve Young as the quarterback. Now, Craig went over the Hall of Fame inductees. I thought this would be kind of cool. Where they went to college. Eric Allen, Arizona State. Darren Woodson, a finalist, Arizona State. Jared Allen went to Idaho State. Willie Anderson, Auburn.
Arizona State's just really loving this last year of
Oh,
football.
my Lord.
Like, they've gotten more football good news in the last 6 months than, I
For
mean,
a
I don't know
long
their
time.
history in a very long time. Yeah.
Since Jake Plummer was a hell of a quarterback in the late, when 97 had a great run. Jari Evans, Bloomsburg. How about that? 4th round pick in 2006 out of Philadelphia, went to Bloomsburg. Antonio Gates, Kent State. Craig, you mentioned them earlier. They're not good now, but Antonio Gates, just a monster of a player.
Yeah, they are absolutely dog-ass right now, but he was a stud and is a stud. And, yeah, he's one of those guys that it was just kind of Tony Gonzalez there for a little while that you talked about the whole basketball to football, especially tight ends, but he joined that class as well of guys. You go, basketball player, got a little bit of athleticism and catch the ball okay? Well, hey, what do you think about coming out and playing a little football? But
Greatest basketball football player of all time, Rico Gathers.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Torrey Holt, NC State. Luke Kuechly, Boston College. Eli Manning went to Ole Miss. I think sometimes people forget where he may have gone. They know Archie and of course, with Peyton in Tennessee. But Steve Smith, Utah. Terrell Suggs, Arizona State. We're not done.
Sizzle.
Fred Taylor, Florida. Great
Never heard of
Gator. Vinatieri went to South Dakota State. Reggie Wayne went to Miami.
That was one Vinatieri that I thought would probably get
Yeah.
in, and I don't know why he was cut short this time around, but I kind of pegged him to be the guy who would seem like kind of a no-brainer because of all the big kicks, but no, he wasn't. He wasn't.
Reggie Wayne went to the U, and then also Darren Woodson, another. 3 of the 15 finalists went to Arizona State. That's pretty darn cool with that. So there we are, the 15 finalists. Marshall Yanda, who played with Baltimore, was from Iowa. So he's another one that were a part of the 15 finalists. So there we are with the schools they attended.
I mean, cool for Arizona State to be the bridesmaid, I guess. That's also part of the last years. You finished runner-up in a lot of stuff you didn't want to finish runner-up in. But you did win that Big 12 championship, yeah. So you wish you'd got a couple of those guys in the Hall of Fame. You wish you would have beating Texas, but you did get that Big 12 title. And, hey, as we just talked about, Texas spending $10 million to get their first. You did it in the first year, and you definitely didn't spend $10 million or anywhere close to that as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, you'll take that all day.
Okay. This was something that I knew one of these two schools had never had somebody score a touchdown, not pass for one, but actually score a touchdown in Super Bowl history. There's been 59 of them now. And for the first time ever, Alabama and Texas had somebody who actually scored in the Super Bowl. Now, I want you to think about that. These are two blue bloods. And yes, they've had their ups and downs, but not many of them. But there's been some stuff where they've not been as good. The two of the highest level among the 5 or 6 bluest of the blue bloods had never had a player score in a Super Bowl. Worthy, what are you looking at me for?
No, I'm just...
Worthy scored twice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was spectacular. And then also Alabama with a touchdown, too.
That's Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts, yeah, Jalen Hurts.
Well, and Devontae Smith. So not only they had gone 58 Super Bowls, and then they get 2 scores in that game, in the same game. I guess Joe Namath throwing a touchdown.
Bart Starr.
Yeah, those don't count.
Yeah, had not scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean that's surprising. I wouldn't have predicted that. I figured there'd be like some random ass tight end or something.
Right now, people are typing up seeing if I'm right about this one. But go ahead.
But yeah, I mean that's a pretty crazy mark. I would have definitely thought Alabama would have had somebody just in the last few years alone that would have done that. But you start thinking about it, it's like Derrick Henry didn't play for a Super Bowl, and you go down the list, like quarterbacks obviously are not a part of this stat, right? Because otherwise,
score actually even
not
quarterback
passing is what I'm
not
saying.
Not passing because Starr and Namath
right, because that would have been the mark. But no, that's wild. And Devontae Smith, I mean, what a dude. A skinny little kid that won the Heisman, and how's he gonna? He's panned out just fine. Total stud, and the Heismans of late have really been kind of on the money, have they not? Like they've really been nailing the NFL stars here as of late. So, yeah, that's crazy, though. I mean, that's 2 of, I don't know, I'm sure you'll look it up, but who's put the most guys in the pros? I'm sure they're 2 of, like, the top 10 at worst.
Absolutely, yeah.
And if not top 5, so that makes that even more bizarre.
Another note about Devontae Smith, because they won the game, he became just the 4th player who won a Heisman Trophy, a college football national championship, and also a Super Bowl ring. Tony Dorsett was the first. Marcus Allen with the Raiders beating Washington 38-9 was the second. And Charles Woodson, Michigan, was the third. That's you just think something how like there's 8 of them, 12 of them, but no, he's just the 4th. But of course there aren't many. There's only one Heisman every year, one national championship every year, and one Super Bowl every year. So there we are with a couple of Super Bowl historical notes. All right, when we come back, John McClain, Hall of Famer himself. In fact, his thoughts about the Pro Football Hall of Fame and also his thoughts about what's next. And that's this 365 Sports. Back in a moment.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing is time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Hall of Fame columnist John McClain with us, born and raised Waco, Texas, joins us on 365 Sports the couple of days after the Eagles dominate Kansas City and win their second Super Bowl and Lombardi Trophy. John, thanks for your time. I want to start with the Hall of Fame, if you don't mind. I know not everybody gets in, and it's not everybody wins a ribbon. Were you a little bit surprised that they didn't have a full class introduced as those being inducted other than the seniors?
The Hall of Fame changed the bylaws for this year, and us on the selection committee, we didn't like it, but we didn't have any choice, and we didn't know exactly how it was going to come out. They wanted to make it more exclusive. Of the three seniors, the one coach, Mike Holmgren, the contributor, Ralph Hay, who founded the NFL, only one made it, and that was Sterling Sharp, a wide receiver. And in the past, we rubber stamped those finalists, and now they have to get 80% of the vote. So it's not a yes or no, it's 80% of the vote. And so all the people that got left off, for whatever reason, did not get 80% of the vote. And yes, I was disappointed. We're going to have a Zoom about it in a couple of weeks, and I'm sure it'll be very interesting to see if we're going to stick with this. Because one thing, for 4 to get in there, smallest class we've had, I think, since 2005. But one of the things, and this is not something that the Hall is interested in, but if you have 4 instead of 7 or 8, that's going to be a lot less people coming to Canton. If you think about it, there's going to be a whole lot less hotel rooms because so many want to come see their guys. So, yes, I was surprised and disappointed.
Yeah, John, the 4 we got in, very, very deserving. We were just talking about it. I had kind of forgotten about Eric Allen in particular, who was just an absolute stud of a defensive back in the 90s.
What was weird about Eric Allen, Paul, is I think he's been at 18. It's 20 years of modern eligibility. Then you go into the senior pool. And we have guys that are on all-decade teams, like Cowboys offensive tackle Ralph Neely was on the all-decade team of the 60s. His name's never even come up. And you would like to be able to guys to become finalists so we can discuss them in the room. And the guys presenting, Eric Allen, did a great job every year, and I was glad he finally made it. He deserved to be in. Jared Allen, Eric Allen and Jared Allen, the pass rusher, both of them were among the best in history at their positions and deserved it. And I know some people are like, well, how could you put this person in and not that person? And the thing is, nobody says, I don't think this guy should get in there. It's more about strengths. But these new bylaws, they sure changed it up, and I hope they go back to the way it was.
John, why was Sterling Sharp a Hall of Famer this time around?
I have no idea why he was this time around. All I know is that you make a 5 minutes presentation if you're his guy, and then you debate him. And we've done that for years with him. He missed for 20 years. I think his 7-year career hurt him originally, but we've been putting in guys like running back Terrell Davis, offensive tackle Tony Baselli, and people like that. Gail Sayers, Doak Walker, Dwight Stevenson, all had what we presume as short careers, but boy, when they played, they were great. I'm glad Sharp finally got in.
And I know that there are notes that those who vote about stuff off the field or whatever, but was Sterling Sharp was any way like Art Monk, who didn't talk to the media, eventually he got in?
Never came up. And the only thing that came up, Jim Tyrer, great offensive tackle for the Chiefs who has Hall of Fame credentials, should have been in years ago. And we didn't consider this because it's away from football. He murdered his wife and killed himself. It shot both themselves. Well, people just assume he has CTE. Nobody knew about it back then. That was in, I think, 80. So he was only a finalist once, and he was a senior finalist this year. And because of the things I just said, we couldn't talk about it. We all knew about it. Well, based on our bylaws, he should be in the Hall of Fame. And I voted him in there, but not enough people did. So obviously they were going against the bylaws and voting with their heart or their brain, which you're not supposed to do because it's clear. And Jim Tyrer is one of the greatest offensive tackles in history.
Back with those, was he with the Hank Stram Chiefs?
Yes.
Yep.
How big of a hill does Darren Woodson have to climb?
I don't understand that one, Paul. I voted for Darren Woodson every year. He has great presentations about him, 3 Super Bowl rings. It's almost like he was a safety who covered slot receivers. It's like people are holding it against him. I think that should be to his advantage. People like we say, we call them silent assassins. And because people won't say anything, and you want sometime the guy that makes the presentation says, anybody got any questions about why you don't think he deserves it? Then speak up and let me know so I can address them. And they don't. But then they become silent assassins. And I feel terrible for Darren Woodson just because he deserves to be in there.
There was that stretch where it seemed like the Cowboys had guys hitting and missing a lot when the Steelers and Packers, they were just kind of going in. Not that they didn't earn it. All of them did at some particular point. What I don't understand is there was a time, am I right, John, in recent years where the NFL had we need to add a bunch of people because we're getting a logjam, and they added more than they normally would, and then they have a class where they don't hardly add anybody. And I know you said there's different bylaws. That's what didn't make sense to me.
No, that was a one-time deal on the 100-year anniversary.
Yeah, I know.
They decided because we had so many seniors who had made all-decade teams who'd never been finalists. So they decided, okay, at one time, let's have a 10-player senior class. And that's when I felt so bad for Cowboys receiver Drew Pearson because he had the media and his family and friends to his house, and then he didn't make it. And then he made it the next year. And but no, there's never been anything where we said we got to do this or we got to do that. It's like I've heard some people that are clueless say, well, I know. They say, you vote my guy, I'll vote yours. 33 years, nobody's ever said that to me, and I've never heard anybody do it. And you just listen to the presentation and all the debating, and then you vote your conscience. And the problem is all of them who make the finals are worth being in the Hall of Fame. You can't tell me Reggie Wayne, Torrey Holt, Steve Smith, those guys were among the greatest receivers in history. Hines Ward, great receiver, a great blocker as well as a team leader, won 2 rings. But they cancel each other out.
Did the presenter for Eli Manning say he beat Tom Brady twice in the Super Bowl and just walk away?
That might have come up. If Eli had retired, say, after the 11th season, let's see, the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. If he retired after 8 or 9 seasons, he'd have been a first ballot. But he played a bunch more years, and he was not very good. His record was terrible. His overall record was 500, and he went to like 2 Pro Bowls, no first-team All-Pros. But I think he'll get in eventually. Because of that, he won 2 Super Bowls, beat Tom Brady, made great plays to do it. And he had some other really good seasons, but I don't think Eli deserved to be the first ballot because quarterbacks are held to a higher standard, and it's got to be a no-brainer.
And Maxie Bond, who was a Ram, and I think he may have played with Washington when George Allen, I don't know if he flipped over to Washington or not during that over-the-hill game, but that brought back some memories for me. He was a hell of a linebacker.
And he went to 8 or 9 Pro Bowls back when the Pro Bowl meant something. Today, when you say Pro Bowls, we have to look and find out if you're an alternate. You know, if you're an alternate, I'm not voting. I want Pro Bowls that were legitimate. And truthfully, once they started letting fans vote on Pro Bowls, that to me kept away some of the legitimacy. Now it's about all pro because you have a 50-person panel, and a lot of them are former players and coaches and GMs.
Paul?
John, you're coming to Waco this weekend, right?
I am. I'm coming for the Texas Sports Hall of Fame induction. Always an incredible event. And I hope if you don't have your tickets, you come. It's a great class. I'm coming specifically to see Brittany Griner because she went to Baylor and did great things for the Bears. But Richmond Webb, the offensive tackle from A&M, Tall Jones, defensive end from the Cowboys, and Todd Dodge, the former UT quarterback who was a great high school coach. They are members of the Gridiron Legends of Texas, and I'm coming up there to support them. Can't wait. They always put on a great show, great food, so I look forward to seeing everybody there.
We had Todd and Richmond on today.
Yeah, Todd Dodge and Richmond Webb were on today, so that a couple of stories about those amazing inductees coming up on Saturday.
I do have a couple of Astros questions for you, John. How long will it take for you not to call it Minute Maid Park, and what is going to happen with Alex Bregman?
Well, considering I still say San Diego for the Chargers is going to be a while, Bregman's not coming back here. Bregman's going to end up at the Red Sox, the Tigers, Blue Jays, maybe the Cubs. And I'll tell you this about Alex. He is a notorious slow starter. If he's hitting 190 in May here, nobody's going to say a word. You go to Boston or Detroit and get $200 million or whatever you're going to get, they're going to boo you out of the stadium. And he's already made well over $100 million in his career. Yes, it's easy for me to say that because I'm not passing up $5 million. But he's going to freeze his butt off for the first 2 months of the season in Boston or Detroit or Chicago. So everybody would wish him the best. But, man, I wish he'd have come back like a 2-year deal, opt out after 2 years, not one. But according to everybody has told me that ship has sailed.
So, John, I think the fact that we've talked about a lot of different things, as we usually do with you, before even asking you about the Super Bowl, kind of sums up the Super Bowl as far as like the entertainment value of the game itself and the competitiveness or lack thereof of the game. But what were your thoughts on the three-peat being nullified once again and the Eagles rising to the mountaintop for the second time in the last few years?
I started watching the pregame show Sunday morning at 8 with NFL Network and ESPN, and Fox had theirs. And I switched back and forth. I watched Fox the most, and I'm always amazed at what the directors and the producers go through to put those hours and hours shows on. They did an incredible job. Then they get to the game, and I picked the Chiefs 27-24. I wasn't surprised they lost because the New Philadelphia is good.
Right.
But to get blown out, I was stunned. People are blasting Mahomes. I saw that kind of pass protection all year with C.J. Stroud. You can't have people get beat at the snap and come flying through the offensive line, and you're running for your life trying to find a receiver and blame it on the quarterback. Nobody could do that. So congratulations to Jalen Hurts, the first MVP from the Houston area. He's from Channelview High School. And I know this, Chiefs aren't going back to the Super Bowl next year because the only one that's done it in 30 years, lose and go back, was the Patriots one time. I think other than the Patriots, you got to go back to the Bills, who lost 4 in a row. It's a hangover. Look at the 49ers this year. You'd think it'd be the hungriest team in football, losing the Super Bowl. So I think it's a good time to take the Bills or the Ravens.
Yeah.
Who do you think will get Myles Garrett?
I don't think anybody. I think they're not going to trade one of the greatest players in history. The key with them, this is what I believe strongly by the time the scouting process is over. Shadur Sanders and Cam Ward, or Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders, will be the first 2 picks, and Cleveland will have a new quarterback. Everybody will be fired up. Deshaun Watson will never play again. He'll spend the year on injured reserve, and they'll cut him with 1 year left on his contract. And the second worst trade in history will be done. And Cleveland finally has all its picks. Doesn't know Houston anything else. And it's not like they're destitute. They've been in the playoffs through the last, 4 years. Stefanski's been coach of the year. And Myles Garrett acts like they're the Lions, and who won 1 playoff game since the 50s till Dan Campbell got there. And it's not a money thing. He wants more money, but I do not think Myles Garrett will be traded.
Now, Deebo Samuel, do you think he'll be traded?
Paul, since he got his big contract, he was so valuable because he was a runner and a receiver. He had 1 year over 300 yards rushing and 1,000 yards receiving, but he's just not the same player. Is it him? Is it them? Anybody? I think they'd be lucky to get a 4th-round pick for him.
Yeah, and he's a big body, but he does seem to get the. He takes a lot of hits because of both as a receiver and also when they were running that jet sweep or whatever it was with him. John, with the season now over, and I know you'll jump right in and brought up the Astros and Bregman or whatever, but with the season over, do you, in all these years you've been doing this, decompress a little bit after a season's over or not?
Well, I'm right now, I've gone from 16 weekly shows to 12, and that includes TV, radio, and podcasts. And I am going to take time off of writing because it's taking away time. I've been working on documentaries with a filmmaker here, and one of them is about the Prairie View Interscholastic League, high school football in Texas before integration. And we've interviewed people like Mean Joe Green, Kenny Houston, Jerry Levias, Elmo Wright, the stories I'm learning of what black high school players went through when that was all they had is just amazing. And I've seen books written, but I haven't seen a documentary, and we're working on one, and it's going to be fantastic.
That's awesome, man.
I do all the interviews.
There's a high school writer, and I think he was inducted into the High School Hall of Fame in the last year or two, who went back to try to save the history of the Prairie View League. Lufkin Dunbar, Temple Dunbar, where Joe Green went. He did an amazing job. Yeah, that guy should be given whatever he wants to go back and save history that a lot of people just had basically lost over time.
Michael Hurd, who's on our Hall of Fame selection committee, he wrote a book a few years ago called Thursday Night Lights. I interviewed Michael for 2 hours.
Yep.
And he was great, and his book is a reference point for us. There were 8 players, Prairie View Interscholastic League, who are in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Only 3 are still alive. We've interviewed Mean Joe Green and Kenny Houston, and we need Emmett Thomas, who's the 3rd, and we'll get him. And one of the reasons we're rushing interviews, these guys have hit 80. Mm-hmm. And I'm learning so many incredible stories. I'm mad about a lot of things, but they're not bitter.
Good. That's good.
Tell you one quick story. When Joe Green was at Temple Dunbar, they couldn't use the white locker rooms at the stadium, so they would have pregame and halftime in the end zone, and sometimes it'd be pouring rain, and they're trying to, in thunder and lightning, they're trying to listen to their coach, and they're getting soaked. And we did a reenactment with a rain machine with a kid wearing, we found old uniforms on eBay from Dunbar, and he looked like Joe Green might look in the early 60s, and we filmed that. So we're putting a lot into it, and I'm having a blast doing it.
Oh, my God, the historian that you are. Thank you, John. That's great.
Thank you, guys. Second Bears.
That's John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist. How about that? Going back and getting some phenomenal stars in NFL history and from the days of desegregation with Lufkin Dunbar. I think Texas High had a Texas Dunbar. I know that Temple had Dunbar, and that's what those schools all were called. Like almost all of them were a part of, back in the day in the 50s and 60s, Dunbar High School, just with the team or the name of the city or town they were from. Paul Catalina and his top 5 is next.
Got my go-to polo from Flag and Anthem. It's everything you want in a golf polo, but you can wear it at a dinner, to a barbecue, whatever your plans are. It's extremely soft, super comfortable. Check it out, flagandanthem.com.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
That's far.
So much forgiveness. Wait, did you say forgiveness like far? Or forgiveness like forgiveness? Forgiveness. Forgiveness. Forgiveness.
I'm hearing far.
Forgiveness. Like forgiveness. Forgiveness? Forgiveness.
I'm still hearing far, but whatever.
Introducing Stealth 2 with more carbon for more forgiveness.
Forgiveness. Just hit it.
Get ready for epic savings at Best Buy. Right now, you can save up to $700 on select Alienware and Dell gaming products. Perfect for leveling up your gaming experience. Plus, grab the latest Android Google Pixel at an unbeatable price. Don't miss these incredible deals. Shop now at bestbuy.com and upgrade your tech today.
For Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome into the Top 5. It's time to talk tight ends in the 2025 NFL Draft. Number 5, Gunnar Helm at Texas. Why is he 5th and not higher? Well, he just kind of came out of nowhere this year. Now, look, Texas fans knew about him, but they still had Jatavian Sanders the year before. Gunnar Helm, as a key part of that offense as anyone else for the Horns in their run to the semifinals this year. First down machine, really good in blocking, does everything you want him to do, fantastic in the red zone. He's the kind of tight end a team can build something around. Reminds me a lot of Dalton Schultz, who with the Cowboys and now with the Texans. Just a guy who moves the chains, who does everything that is asked of him. Number 4, Mason Taylor at LSU, the son of Jason Taylor, former Dolphins superstar defensive end and NFL Hall of Famer. This guy is an athlete upon an athlete who hasn't even hit his full potential yet. The only reason he's not as high as some of the other guys on this list is, well, one, there's some super studs on this list, and 2, he just needs a little bit more seasoning, but he was one of Garrett Nussmeier's go-to players for the Tigers this year. And this is a huge moment in his career. The winning, was it 2-point conversion against Alabama?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, winning 2-point conversion against Alabama a couple years ago. And he's still a young player, still raw compared to everybody else on this list. He gets with the right team. Say the Chiefs or the 49ers, a team that coaches up tight ends really well and has a veteran tight end that might be gone in a couple years. Watch out for Mason Taylor in the NFL because his athleticism, especially for a guy his size, off the charts. Number 3, Harold Fannin Jr. of Bowling Green. Maybe more of an H-back type, a guy you can do a lot of different things with, move him all over the formation. Super athletic. If you watch Bowling Green this year, their offense was fantastic. I know that I'm saying if you watch Bowling Green, that's only football nerds like myself, but Harold Fannin Jr. Was on every award list for any kind of tight end, receiver-related award, and deservedly so because he was absolutely fantastic. Super athletic, can do the hurdle thing, fast, strong. Did not have the best week at the senior or in the All-Star game week, but still a guy that bears drafting, and the right creative offensive coordinator can do a ton with him as tight ends are starting to change in the Brock Bowers era of what can we do with these guys. Number 2, Colston Loveland from Michigan, pure tight end. I mean, if you're talking about I want a tight end who blocks, who's good in the red zone, who does all those things, who gets first downs on third and medium, that's Colston Loveland. Athletic, strong, all of that. He does not fit in the category of a Brock Bowers of a let's move him all over the formation kind of a guy, but as an inline blocker, as a tight end, as the classic badass, just knock you in the dirt, win the catch over you in those big spots, be it for first downs or for touchdowns. That's Colston Loveland from Michigan. Absolutely. And he has a lot of time under his belt. Plug and play to start right away, pretty much, because he was in a pro system in college. He'll be great. Would not be surprised to see him wind up with his college coach, Jim Harbaugh, with the Chargers. And number 1, if you remember, he was on my dudes list because you can do anything with this guy. A lot like Brock Bowers. They lined him up in the Wildcat to take direct snaps. They moved him all of the formation. He caught deep passes. He caught short passes. He ran the ball. He ran tight end around. He ran, like I said, in the Wildcat. This guy is a monster. He does not care who's in front of him. He's going to win that battle. He's got great hands, big hands, you can see right there, pretty much wrapping around the whole football. All the measurables that you're going to want, speed, strength, size, jumping, all that stuff. So he'll do well in the Underwear Olympics. But where he really exceeds is when you turn on the film and watch this guy play. If you did not watch Penn State this year, which I can't believe you wouldn't because they were in the semifinals, for God's sakes, but Penn State is probably nowhere without him on offense because they did not have plus wide receivers. This guy was everything in their passing game and a little bit in their running game, which was elite anyway. Tyler Warren, let's give him a top 15 grade, top 20, because tight end is one of those positions where it gets kind of tricky on picking someone early on in the draft. But he will be a first-round pick, mark my words, and he will improve any offense that he goes to. That's going to do it for this episode of the Top 5. We'll be back tomorrow. Smokey, ring that bell.
All right, ring it, ding, and we will, starting tomorrow, this was Craig's idea, that we'll take a team, alphabetical order, Arizona first, then Arizona State. Then I guess would it be Baylor? Will be the 16 days of looking at a specific team, look at their schedule, discuss them a little bit, and then we will promise to make sure our predictions on them, when that time comes, are better than most any year we've been doing this. But thank you very much, Garrett Ross, for your time. Also, Andrew is here today yet again. Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak. Thanks to everybody. Chat room at 365 Sports, Y2 on Twitter, YT on Twitter, and also Sikkim 365 app. For everybody, our great sponsors, I'm David Smoak. Have a great night. Good night, 365 Sports.